ఓకే సరిపోతుందిలే ఏముంది మంది.
సరిపోతుంది మేడం. అశ్విని సార్ కూడా జాయిన్ అవుతున్నారు ఒకవేళ.
10కి కదా, ముందే స్టార్ట్ చేద్దామా ఒకవేళ అందరూ వస్తే?
లేదు మేడం 10కే సార్ అసలు ఒప్పుకోరు. అశ్విని సార్ అది అసలు
అలాగా స్పీకర్ రెడీగా ఉండి అందరూ వచ్చేస్తే ఏముంది అందులో.
సార్ జాయిన్ అయితే ఆ పని చేద్దాం మేడం. ఒక మాట మీరు అనండి. సార్ స్పీకర్ రాలేదు ఇంకా.
పార్టిసిపెంట్స్ కూడా ఎవరు లేరు కదా ఇంకా. ఉన్నారా వెయిటింగ్ రూమ్ లో ఎవరైనా?
వెయిటింగ్ రూమ్ లో ఇద్దరు ఉన్నారు, ఒకరు ఉన్నారు.
ఒకసారి చైనా నవీన్ ఒకసారి సెట్ చేసుకుంటుందేమో.
చేయండి మేడం, చేయండి. మేడం కోహోస్ట్ చేస్తున్నాను మిమ్మల్ని, అప్పుడే ఎవరిని యాడ్ చేయకండి. సుష్మిత మేడం.
అలాగే అలాగే.
మేడం ఫస్ట్ సెషన్ మీదే మేడం.
అవును నవీన్ గుర్తుంది. ఐఎమ్ రెడీ. స్లైడ్ కూడా ఆన్ చేసి పెట్టుకున్నాను. సార్ది బయోడేటా. ఐఎమ్ రెడీ. కాకపోతే ఎక్కువ ఎందుకు మాట్లాడట్లేదంటే మళ్ళీ ఇప్పుడు మాట్లాడేటప్పుడు వాయిస్ బ్రేక్ అంటుందని కావుగా ఉంది అంతే.
పర్లేదు పర్లేదు, నో ప్రాబ్లం. హాయ్ దీప్తి.
హాయ్ నవీన్. ఈ రోజు నాది సెకండ్ కదా?
అవునవును సెకండ్.
ఓకే. సార్ గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్.
సార్ గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్.
సార్ గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్. హాయ్ దీప్తి.
సార్ గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ నవీన్.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ అమ్మా. శ్రీ విద్యా, సుష్మిత, దీప్తి.
మార్నింగ్ సార్. మార్నింగ్ సార్.
సార్ ఇది నేషనల్ యాంథమ్ ఒకసారి ప్లే చేయనా సార్? లాస్ట్ లో అంటే మనం ప్రోగ్రామ్ షీట్ లో యాడ్ చేయలేదు కానీ ఒకవేళ ప్లే చేయాల్సి వస్తే.
కిషోర్ సార్ ఏమన్నారు?
సార్ ఏం దాని గురించి ఏం మాట్లాడలేదు సార్.
అడిగావా నువ్వు? నేను మాట్లాడతాను, మధ్యలో ఒకసారి మాట్లాడతాను, దాన్ని బట్టి చూద్దాం.
ఒకసారి అంటే మీకు ఊరికి అసలు కరెక్ట్ గా ఉందా లేదా ఒకసారి చూస్తారా సార్? ప్లే చేయనా?
ప్లే చేసి చూడు
సార్. నుంచోవాలా సార్?
కానీ బా స్పెల్ బౌండ్ ఉంటే చాలు.
స్పెల్లే సార్ ఓన్లీ.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
కాదు నవీన్, దీనికన్నా కాపీ రైట్స్ ఏం ప్రాబ్లం ఉండవా?
ఓన్లీ మనం వాయిసే కదా సార్ వినిపించేది.
ఏదైనా సరే
ఇంకా అంతగా ఎక్కడి నుంచి తీసుకోవడం సార్?
సరే, నువ్వు రెడీ పెట్టుకోండు, నేను కిషోర్ సార్ని అడిగి చెప్తాను.
సార్ సార్ సార్
ఇప్పుడు ఎలాగో ఇది తీయేసావు కదా, యూనివర్సిటీ సాంగ్ తీయేసావు కదా,
తీసాను సార్.
స్ట్రైట్ అవే ఫార్మాలిటీ ముగిచ్చేద్దాం.
అలాగే సార్. సార్
ఓకే. ఫస్ట్ ఎవరు, మీ సారేనా? అమ్మా నవీన్ పార్టిసిపెంట్స్ యాడ్ చేయాలనుకుంటా చూడు, అడ్మిట్ చేయాలనుకుంటా.
ఓకే సార్, చేస్తాను సార్.
Hello.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Naveen. Are you able to
Thanks.
listen me?
Yeah, sir. Sir, little bit louder, sir. Your voice,
Voice is not clear?
just little bit louder, sir.
That's fine.
Sir.
Okay.
We'll start at 10, sir. So, convener Dr. Ashwini Kumar is already here, sir. So he will start the proceedings.
Naveen, shall we start now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Yeah, very good morning to all of you. On behalf of the organizing secretary and from the staff and students of NTR College of Veterinary Science, Gannavaram, I invite you all for this international webinar on advances in veterinary and animal sciences. This is the second day of the session. Yesterday we had 3 wonderful lectures by Sunil, Dr. Suresh and Dr. Pilford. And today we have 3 more lectures from eminent personalities, starting from Dr. Waris Nayan. It has been a pleasure to have you all with us. There are more than 300 institutions spanning 6 different countries. So it is a very good initiation on the part of the organizers to commemorate this international webinar as part of 25 years of Silver Jubilee celebrations. To brief about this college, to Dr. Waris Nayan sir, as you all know, this college started in the year 1998. In fact, I started my academic life career from this very college in the year 99 on this day, that is 15th March 1999. So it is very nostalgic moment for all of us. And Dr. Naveen and Deepthi are alumnus of this college. So once again, I welcome you all and I hand over the proceedings now to Dr. Naveen. Thank you.
Madam Shushmita, madam.
Yeah, Naveen. Sir, good morning, sir. So good morning to all. Myself, Dr. Sushmita, Assistant Professor in Poultry Science. And I welcome you all to the 2-day international webinar in veterinary and animal sciences, which is being conducted on the eve of Silver Jubilee celebrations of our college. And I'm happy to introduce the first speaker of this first session, Dr. Waris Nayan, who is a senior scientist in animal biochemistry at Central Institute for Research on Buffaloes, Hisar. He did his BVSc and AH from Bihar Veterinary College, Patna, and was recipient of merit scholarship through all the years. Dr. Nayan obtained his MVSc degree in animal biochemistry and also PhD in animal biochemistry from NDR in Karnal in the year 2015. He was selected 2 times for CSIR JRF in 2004 and 2006, and once for ICMR JRF in 2005. He started his career as assistant professor in the CVSA and AH Aizawl, Mizoram, under Central Agricultural University, Imphal, during 2006 to 2009, after which he was selected in the ARS of ICR during 2009 and joined CIRB Hisar. Dr. Nayan is working mainly in the area of computational genomics, identification of biomarkers of stress, prognosis and therapeutic outcome, transcriptomics, fertility augmentation in buffaloes and other farm species, nanosensor and nanoparticle biological interactions. He has also published several high-impact researchers in reputed journals. He has been granted 2 patents as first inventor, and Dr. Nayan has been part of the team developing 3 databases for buffaloes. He has also guided 4 masters and 1 doctoral dissertations. He is a member of several scientific societies and recipient of the Distinguished Scientist Award of the Society for Bioinformatics and Biological Sciences. In recognition of his outstanding contribution to dairy sciences, the National Academy of Dairy Science India conferred the Associate Fellowship of the Academy on Dr. Nayan. He is associate editor to JAVAR and JABBB and manuscript reviewer for both national and international journals, including biosensors and bioelectronics. He is associated with several national and international research projects, including the NASF, DVT network project on agricultural bioinformatics and computational biology, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, USA sponsored researchers, etc. Dr. Nayan has also conducted ICAR CIRB General Club lecture series as its member secretary and organized the National Brainstorming Workshop on the role of buffaloes in Indian economies and other several training programs for artificial inseminators and farmers. So with this brief intro of Dr. Varis Nayan, I now hand over the session to Dr. Nayan, sir, to please continue.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues and friends, good morning. I'm very much delighted to be here today to share my thoughts. Thank you all for taking the time to join me. Before I dive into the talk, I would like to thank and congratulate NTR College of Veterinary Sciences for inviting me and for its Silver Jubilee celebrations. Without further ado, let's begin our exploration of artificial intelligence and immunoreagent design perspectives on animal production. So my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay. It's coming.
Yes, sir, it's coming.
Okay, that's fine. So we all know that agriculture has been the mother of humanity. In the slide available in front of you, on the right side, you can see this is a visual taken from depicting the ancient Egyptian civilization. On the left, you can see that is from Indus Valley civilization. That means agriculture and animal husbandry. This has been practiced through ancient civilizations throughout millennium. When we talk about that, we have to understand that livestock sector, it is a bank on books because owing to its immense contribution to Indian economy, like 30.87 in agriculture and allied sector GVA. So this data has been taken from the DST. And having said that, we have to understand that we have a lack of effective point of care diagnostic tests, which can be applied to resource poor endemic areas, which has been a critical barrier for treatment and control of infectious diseases. And this has also been true for the animal production as well. When we talk about that, we have to understand that we are living in a developing nation, and there are several underdeveloped or less developed nations from the African continent and Indian subcontinent. So these third world and developing nations, they have several problems. For instance, this is a multifactorial syndrome that is affecting several factors are there. That is for mastitis, where microorganisms management, host environment, these are playing factors. So we have common diagnostic tests in several conditions based on there are several field methods and there are laboratory methods. For field methods, there may be clinical science, animal inoculation, smears, California mastitis test. For laboratory tests, there are ELISA, RIA, and all these things, PCR, these are. But for any kind of test, we need immunoreagents. And if immunoreagents are there, we can develop any kind of assay. Those immunoreagents need to be very much specific And we have to understand that WHO has also recommended that ideal diagnostic tests suitable for developing, underdeveloped, and undeveloped countries should have the factor that is called assured. Assured means simple, it is affordable, it should be sensitive, it should be specific, it should be user-friendly, robust, and mostly equipment-free and deliverable to the end user. And in the words of Anthony Fauci, I will quote him his words like, quote, immunoresistance are like keys to open doors in research, and without them, we can't unlock the mysteries of immune system. So we need immunoresistance. And apart from immunoresistance, we have to understand that there is an artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence where the systems, they perform tasks that mimic human intelligence. If you go through the recent trends of artificial intelligence, on the right side, you can see that this is a famous player of Go. Go is a game that is the Korean game. So it's the winner of that one, number one ranker of that game in that time, Lee Sedol. So there was a match between AlphaGo, it was a company from Google's DeepMind, and there was a match between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol, where Lee Sedol was defeated by the AlphaGo. AlphaGo was the artificial intelligence, and Lee Sedol, he has taken retirement from the game 3 years after, describing that he has said that AI cannot be defeated. But I have said that, but in 2023 February, Kelly Berlin, he has defeated the AI category in 14 of the 15 games. So he comprehensively defeated that. So breaking the myth that AI cannot be defeated. But while defeating that, playing the match between the Katago and the Kelly Berlin, he has taken, in that match, he has not taken help from the computer. But before that, he tried to exploit a flaw in that AI and he defeated. So it is there that the AI can be defeated. It is not invincible. And you have to understand that AI tries to replicate human or animal behavior and do human or animal-like tasks. On the right side, you can see the oil paintings that has been created, that has been. Are you getting my voice? Hello.
This is a little low, sir. Increase your volume, sir.
Again,
So
are
that
you
it
getting
will-
my voice?
Sir, bit
You are
lower,
audible, sir.
bit lower, sir. Try to increase your volume, sir. Sir, try to increase volume little bit higher, sir. Hello, sir.
Are you getting my voice? Wait.
Sir, the voice a little bit lower, sir.
Okay, I will manage.
Sir.
So here, these are the two oil paintings that has been created by myself. It has been created using the help of an AI that I will describe in the later slide. So here, one thing that you have to understand that AI, it has come to my attention that AI always portray itself bigger than the living entity. So you can see, I think my slides are not moving, Naveen. Okay, just a minute. So here you can see these are the self-driving cars. So with the self-driving cars, a long-standing dream of artificial intelligence has come true, which is now which has now become reality in few of the cities. And you can see in the right side, you can see these are the pictures that has been created. I have created these pictures using the AI, one of the AI that is called DAL-E2. So where I gave the command like teddy bears mixing a sparkling chemicals with math scientists in a steampunk style. So this can be ordinarily, if I have to create this picture, I would like to have multiple strokes and color rendering, everything that has to happen. But I have simply gave the command to that AI, and it has created the pictures. And in recent times, you might be knowing that GPT-4, ChatGPT, they are coming. They are wonderful. They are generating human-like responses to text-based inputs. So point here is that AI is having roles in all walks of life. So it is also affecting the animal science. It can have enormous possibilities in animal health, nutrition, management, animal behavior detection and recognition, animal welfare. On the right side, you can see that AI is being used. In fact, Dr. Sunil Monteiro yesterday, he was talking about, he has developed an app, Mahishi Mitra. So where this deep learning was used for capturing those images so that they can distinguish the estrus and between estrus and diestrus samples. So it can have implications. So point here is that where we are fitting, we were working in the computational immunoresistant design. So we were working since long in this area, like generally for development of any immunodiagnostic, you need immunoreagents. And we were developing those kind of immunogens so that they can be very much specific. And these immunodiagnostics, they can offer rapid and high throughput diagnosis. So generally, we were taking the computationally designed synthetic epitopes, and these were the new chemical tools with distinct applications. So these epitopes are the ideal immunoresins. They can be used in several varieties like stapling, grafting, making of camera, decorating the nanovesicle with the nanovesicles and other things. So what we will be doing, I will be discussing the two case studies, what we learned from that. So like when we work on the computational immunoresistant design, we started with the buffalo luteinizing hormone, and I will share our experiences, my experiences with working with that. So without that, this buffalo luteinizing hormone, this can have new possibilities in the buffalo estrus and population prediction. So we all know that, like Ontier sir has yesterday depicted, that estrus is the major bottleneck, and the artificial insemination reach has failed to deliver because of this limitation. And we have to understand that rupees 40 to 50,000 crore losses were annually happening because of anestrus and repeat breeding in dairy animals. And we have to also understand that when one heat is missed, then the farmer is incurring a loss of the reproductive life of the estrus period. That is the estrus cycle, that is the 21 days on an average. And we know that this estrus is very much a problem because it's a major bottleneck in reproductive management, because the behavioral manifestations are not so prominent. So we are in the need of developing some kind of test so we can detect that estrus in an animal, and AI can be timed so that reproductive outcome can be better. So what we thought, that we tried to translate the omics knowledge into diagnostics. Already a lot of omics knowledge was available. So we are generating a lot of huge data. How to make sense of that data? Like so that we can make diagnostic, we tried our effort in that direction. So what we did, we took a sequence of luteinizing hormone from NCBI, that is the open access platform. And from there, we have translated them and we focused on that one. Like this is the buffalo estrus cycle, where you can see the progesterone, estradiol, LH hormones. These are the known biomarkers available at that time. So in future or in coming times, there will be more biomarkers, so that can be tried. Those can be tried as well. So this is the glycoprotein, and that is very much required. And moreover, that whether that LH can be utilized or not. So we thought that LH can be done because estrus commences with estradiol hormone peak, and after that, luteinizing hormone comes in play, and ovulation happens. So we can catch that window. We can, if we can catch the LHP, then we can time the AI better. So what we did is we retrieved the buffalo-nucleotide sequences of LH, and then we did the sequence alignment, and we also constructed the model of buffalo luteinizing hormone, and its quality assessment was done. And we also mapped the epitope out of this buffalo luteinizing hormone, and then we analyzed this sequence for conservations and different, other things like hydrophilicity and hydrophobicity was ascertained so that its antigenic nature can be predicted. Then finally, we selected this luteinizing hormone, and finally, this luteinizing hormone peptide were synthesized and identified and synthesized, and finally we characterized it. So in the nutshell, this was we have done. So here you can see the multiple sequence alignment between different protein units of different organisms, and here we have plotted this. This is the homology model of the buffalo LH subunit beta, and we have found 3 pockets, 1, 2, 3 pockets in this whole model. So this is having the solvent accessible surface area was calculated, and here you can see this is the epitope region, which is shown in this area. And we have also predicted the antigenic region because for peptide selection, we predicted the antigenic region, and these epitopes were also predicted by different algorithms. Finally, this is the antigenicity propensity score was calculated, and we found the 2 antigenic regions which were having the high antigenic propensity score. So we selected our peptide there. And you can see also this is the antigenic plot. So this is the selected peptide, what we have selected. And this is depicted in this model. You can see this peptide that has been depicted. So Ramachandran plot is there. 2 different analysis we have done that whether this is this model, this model is fitting to other scores or not, like Q-mean analysis and pro-assay web server we have used. So that result is shown here. Finally, we come to our peptide, and this peptide properties were also calculated, like what is this isoelectric point, or what is this extension coefficient, and finally, we have also synthesized this peptide synthetically. So these are the peptide HPLC report, and this is the RDMS report. And finally, we also did the ELISA studies, direct ELISA we have done, and we have also done the immunoblotic studies for immune recognition of luteinizing hormone with this developed antipeptide antibodies, because we have generated antibodies against these peptides target. And finally, a direct ELISA has also been done to confirm whether the recombinant LH is binding to that antibody or not, so that we can recognize them. And we have published this work in a very good impact factor journal, that is International Journal of Biological Macromolecules. And this work was also patented. We got the patent for that as well. In the next stage, what we did, what to do, suppose ELISA is there, like antigens and antibodies are there. So now we need some kind of sensors that can be used effectively out of the lab setting anywhere. So we converged to the nanotechnology. What we did is we prepared the whole nanoparticles ourselves, and then we characterized it, and then we tagged this whole nanoparticle either with peptides and also with the antibody, so that in lateral flow assay we can develop some kind of lateral flow assay. We have here you are seeing the whole nanoparticle tagged with the peptide conjugate, and this peptide and whole nanoparticle conjugate were also characterized by different means, like Fourier size, zeta potential, and electron microscopy, Fourier diameter, and we have also ascertained whether the nanoparticle conjugate will be stable in biologically relevant solutions or not. So that we went for in vitro stability test, and then finally we have also done PCS. So here you can see on the left, this is the nanoparticle that we have prepared. Its surface plasmon resonance was characteristically found at 520 nanometer, and this the TAME images of this nanoparticle, TAME and the TAME image, and this is the single area electron diffraction photographs of this nanoparticle. And then we have also imaged the nanoparticle conjugate, and we also did the dynamic light scattering study so that its hydrodynamic diameter and the theta potential can be calculated. We also did the nanoparticle tracking analysis so that we can get an idea that what is this concentration. And on the right side, you can see this the in vitro stability say results in different solutions of biologically relevant with like in sustained solutions with plus in a biological fluid. You have to remember that in biological fluid there are several molecules like cysteine, like other proteins are there. So we have to test that because when your assay will be dependent on that. Then we converted this ELISA, we converted this assay into ELISA so that we can different kind of ELISA we done, direct ELISA and cognitive inhibition ELISA we done. And then finally we translated this into different kind of immunostrip assays. Like mid-strip, you can see in this picture, you can see the antibodies that were spotted there. And finally, it was dipped in the gold nanoparticle peptide conjugate, and the color were developed of different intensity. Finally, of the same thing, we spiked it with a varying concentration of luteinizing hormone, and the results were there. So if 120 milli international unit per ml luteinizing hormone was added to that solution, you see here there is no spots. So it is a kind of competitive inhibition strip assay. The same we have done this assay we have done, and we have found we tested with the spiked solution as well as in the estrus and diestrus samples. So here you can see in the lateral flow assay, when we converted it into lateral flow assay, this stage line is happening, is present there. In the case of no LH, but when LH was present, that means LH was present above a threshold in estrus sample in the buffalo urine, the band was not there. So this is a kind of competitive inhibition assay. So this is the scheme for the exploration of full nanoparticle LHP potential for as a nanosensor. And this is the scheme for lateral flow assay. And we published this work in the Royal Society of Chemistry Journal, Analytical Methods in that. Coming to the second case study, we also tried this with Buffalo MX2. Actually, Buffalo MX2, it has the different possibilities. Like in case of some reports, it has been mentioned that it is a very important protein in terms of imparting gene resistance. And also it is also found that they have a relation with somatic cellulose food. So in case of mastitis and also other problems, it can be ascribed. Right now, we don't know with certainty that where it is required, but in future, it may also come. In some of the reports that it was also proposed that MX2 molecule was responsible by one of the marker molecule for determination of pregnancy. So we thought, why not? We should take this molecule. So we did the in silico analysis of this protein and found the epitopeptides through different algorithms. So we did that one. And this is the model for MX2, Ramachandran plot, ProSS wave results, and this cumin analysis of this one. So through that, the model quality of this was checked through cumin assay and ProSS web server. And finally, when we did the ELISA, and we also did the dot plot, we were certain that this peptide and the antibody that we have developed against MX2 peptide, epitopeptide, that were working fine. So with 100% sensitivity, having 100% sensitivity with the bovine MX2, we also sent this filing patent to Indian Patent Office. So it is not yet granted. So in nutshell, what we were doing, like this is a kind of computational immunoresistant design. But now it is in the recent past, like in August 21, there was a paper in Nature that is showing that Google DeepMind, this has come up with a product that is AlphaFold, where artificial intelligence was in play. And the same question was with us. Like when we submitted our work to one of the journals, they have said that can you go for a programmed or it's a command line approach of your results? That at that time we were not sure that how can we do that. And for that we need to devise kind of code so that method can be automated. But you see here, the AlphaFold has come into play at the 2021 edition. So this was an AI system, and which is predicting the structure of various proteins. So you can see the AlphaFold is revealing the structure of various proteins in the protein universe, thousands of proteins. You can see that how AlphaFold is changing the face of biology. You can see here the AlphaFold is being employed in malaria, in Alzheimer, in osteoporosis, in all kind of assets like fighting the antibiotic resistance. So AlphaFold is having so much. So the AI, this is now coming in the work that we were able to do in years that has been shortened to months itself. So this is the potential of AI, like immunoresistant design that is happening. In fact, AI is changing the face of everything. So this can be applied to immunoresistant design so that better immunoresistance can be designed. And this immunoresistance can be converted into diagnostic assays. That is the need of veterinary medicine and veterinary diagnosis. That is the need. So AI is, I will tell one quote from David Baltimore from Caltech, and he has been awarded a Nobel Prize in Physiology for Medicine in the 70s, and he said, quote, AI is changing the face of immunology and will help determine more effective immunoresistance. So I will close this with AI could be one of the humanity's most useful inventions. Means how we can use it. So for animal production, we have not used it that well. So we can use them for design immunoresistance, like in COVID pandemic. This AI and this immunoresistant design has become handy in devising several kind of immunodiagnostics on short notice. So we have to understand that diagnosis is not the end, it is the beginning of the practice. So I will stop my talk here. I will acknowledge the funding agency that we have got. One is from ICR, Network Project Agriculture Biologics and Computational Biology. Another one is Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and our institutes, CIRB, ICR, NDRA, our collaborators, and my alma mater, and our gifting institution, NRC, and ISI, and all of our students, SRFs, RA, and other support staff. Without whose support, I couldn't have accomplished anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
మేడం క్వశ్చన్స్ ఏమైనా ఉంటే ఎవరన్నా అడిగితే వాళ్ళు చెప్తాను చెప్పండి.
Sir, if any queries are there, I'll just let you know, sir.
Let them ask. Let them speak. So dear participants, if any questions are there, you can directly ask sir, or you can directly put a question to the sir.
Navin, I think you have to unmute them.
If there are no questions, thank you very much.
Sir, I think there are questions. We'll see, sir. Just wait.
పార్టిసిపెంట్స్ అన్మ్యూట్ చేయాలనుకుంటా నవీన్ నువ్వు ఒకసారి
ఒకసారి
చూడు.
చూడండి మేడం, అది ఒకసారి నాది స్క్రీన్ ఇంకోటి వచ్చింది, ఒకసారి మీరు చూడండి. Okay, madam. The participants were unmuted.
Sir, we have a question, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
please.
can I ask?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
How can we use AI in microbes identification?
In microbes, what you were trying, microbes. Basically, I am not working in the area of microbes, but AI can be used for that. So, for microbes, traditionally, what you are doing for microbes identification, you are doing the culture. First, what you are going to do, either you will be getting a garbage or something like that, like blood or specific media, where you are culturing them. So that is one way. It was done since old times. Now many features, many instrumentations have come, like a microbial identification system based on GCMS and everything. They have come into. But AI can be used for that. I don't know, because I think one is doing right now. I cannot say with certainty if someone is doing or not. But artificial intelligence, you can devise algorithms where these algorithms can detect some distinguished features of this microorganisms. Like, for instance, in many cases of viruses, for example, equine herpes virus and equine influenza, you have to distinguish them. Then these are the viruses. There are viruses. These are segmented viruses. Then there will be several kinds of things. Some signature you have to search for that, and then these signatures can be exploited in the diagnostic assessment. AI can be automated with several kinds of techniques. You have a loop-mediated isothermal amplification plan. So that is being used to distinguish between these viruses. Even equine herpes virus 1 and as a variant, that is other serotype, that is equine herpes virus 2, that can also be detected with that. With the coming of CRISPR-Cas technology, you can also make it more sensitive, and that can be automated itself. So purpose of AI, you have to do with that. If you have microbes, different microbes, they have the different kind of culture characteristics. Like mycoplasma, they will be having different kind of culture characteristics. And this is staph, they will be having that. Like a streptococcus, this is the cocci, and bacilli, they are having the rods. So based on their morphological features, you can distinguish between these. Like Dr. Anteru study, he said that based on the fern pattern, different kind of fern pattern, he has said that deep language or markup language can be used for deep learning. Deep learning that can be distinguished. So here also, based on morphological features, you can distinguish. You can find the features that has to be distinguished, and the AI can come in play. I think I have answered your query. Then I will be happy. Hello. Hello, are you getting my voice, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So point here is that you have to distinguishing factor you have to identify, whether it is a morphological feature or it is a other entity. Then you can program that AI for that.
So the participants can
Still, we have time, so participants,
questions
you can
are
ask.
interested.
questions. Madam, there is a question in chat box.
Can you pose it, Naveen? I'm unable to see.
Is there any facial recognition system in animals?
People are working on that. Say that people are working on that. So facial recognition, in fact, with this Information Technology Research Academy, ITRA, that is the one of the component of its funding agency from the Ministry of I think Information Technology that has initiated. So one project was awarded to Northeast, like an RCP. They were working on that one. So it can also be, it can be used. Why not? It can be used. I think in CIRB, one of the scientists, Dr. S.N. Kawar, he has worked that biometric features based on this buffalo's biometric features. Like each animal, it has some body conformation. So it has some biometric features. So that can be feeded to the AI system and that can be used. So we know about the body condition as code and anything that can be done. Like, so you have to take the pictures from different angles, like from front, from the back, from the side, and you can devise that. So that is being done. So, I think I'm not working in that area. So, but I'm aware that people are working on that.
So there is one more question. Can you use artificial intelligence in pregnancy detection?
Yes, it can be used. Artificial intelligence, generally what happens, the pregnancy detection, it is being done by either traditionally ultrasonography. It is the one of the gold standard. Hello. Ultrasonography is the one of the gold standard for determining pregnancy. Generally, after artificial insemination, when the animal becomes pregnant, in the absence of any biomarker and any diagnostic kits, we cannot say with certainty. So with ultrasonography, we can have the image ultrasonography and rectal examination. In day 30, we can, with certainty, we can say that. So in ultrasonographic images, it can be fed into the AI system, and that we can distinguish so that we can use the deep learning and that one. That also can be done. And based on some hormones like corpus luteum, if this is a persistent corpus luteum, in that case, corpus luteum is secreting the progesterone hormone. And that label is determined. Like we are using double progesterone assay for determining whether the animal is in distress or not. So that can also be done. So all this data can be fed into that system. The only thing is we have to devise codes for that one, and we can make the AI system where it can easily detect that. So it will happen in future.
There is one more question on RFID tags in animal husbandry. So how best we can use?
Look, RFID tag, once there was an incident like along with my mentor, Dr. Dheer Singh and Dr. Teru, we went to IIT Roorkee. One of the scientists, professor there, he was working on RFID. He has said that with the RFID technology, like we can monitor, means a heart, like a heartbeat, we can monitor. So in animal husbandry and in veterinary practices, we don't want to touch the animals. If this RFID can be used for getting the heart rate or the suppose respiration, all this can be used. And even there are several animal monitoring system that is being used. I think one of a few companies, they are coming with this one animal monitoring system, like based on collar, sub-collar, and they can be used for animal activity monitoring, so that the animal is in stress or not, we can identify them. So RFID technology can be easily used for determining animal health and animal physiological parameters, which we don't want to do with our hands, because the animal, it is maybe docile and is fine. If it is not docile, then it's not, means if we have to restrain the animal. And simple thing is, if with RFID you can get all these parameters, then it's very simple. So you can use RFID technology for animals.
Naveen, may I pose a question?
Yeah, please.
Sir, good morning, sir. It's a great session. Can this AI be used to determine the health status of the animal? That is, in terms of if a pathogen has gained entry into the animal, there might be very slight alterations in the levels of cytokines initially. So if we could detect at that stage, at least we can reduce the severity of the disease. And we could also reduce the transmission.
Means this is a very good question. Whenever any pathogen enters the body, what is happening? The body will exert the inflammatory response to combat that infection. So this cytokines like interleukins will play, like interleukin-1 beta. It is definitely there. Even interleukin-1 beta will always be present in most of the animals in intensive farming system. While once what happened, we were collecting samples for our mastitis. When we were working on mastitis, we were collecting samples from animals. And in qPCR, what is happening in control animals, which were not having mastitis, those milk somatic cell sample, when we did the gene expression analysis, the interleukin-1 beta expression was coming very high. I thought, why it is coming in the control and why it is not coming, it is lower in disease. But then I asked the farm people that what is happening. They actually, in fact, the vaccination, this is a process, this is a normal procedure which we apply in our farms. So they have vaccinated all the animals without the knowledge of me. So once they have done the vaccination, these interleukins are supposed to be increased. And if these interleukins can be determined much earlier, like interleukin-1 beta, this is the pro-inflammatory cytokine. Interleukin-6, this may be, there are some anti-inflammatory and the balance between pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cytokines. So that will be helpful if we can determine that. But interleukin-1 beta will always elevate in intensive farming system in many conditions, because you cannot control all the situations. I think, have I answered your query?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So if this can be used for sero monitoring and all, that would be very easy.
Definitely, but this is one limitation for our persons in veterinary practice. It is
Yes,
not
sir. Yes, sir.
always done.
Yes,
It
sir.
should be done. And
Yes.
not only this one, the serum monitoring, like blood samples. Simple hematology can tell you whether the animal is diseased or not.
Yes.
Means if you have, suppose you have lymphocytes, neutrophils, monocytes, all these are there in a general human practice. This is being done like a blood sample, blood test. They will do the simple CBC. This can give you many information that whether that animal is diseased or not. So
Yes.
while designing the experiments, that has to be done.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sir, we have one more question, sir.
Yes, please.
So, can AI help to reduce the environmental impact on livestock farming? And can
Yes,
we optimize their production efficiency?
Yes, yeah, we can optimize in animal production system. AI can be used for feed whatever you are feeding to animals. You can optimize the regulation of that. How much water intake is to be there. It can be automated, and all this can be very much useful for this animal production system. AI can be used, and moreover, for the early warning system in forecasting seasonal diseases, it can be done. Means whatever data we have, that we can do. Means the only thing is we have to think in that direction, and that can be done. Like you have the animals. Suppose you have animals in different seasons, different kind of states. Like in Maharashtra, while reading some newspapers, there was some articles like in Mumbai and Pune. I think Mumbai and Thane, heat waves are there. So these heat waves, they are heat stresses. So they are producing the heat wave that will impose a kind of stress to the animals. So once we gather all the data, the meteorological data of that particular area, we can generate some kind of forecasting system, and we can provide advisory to the livestock keepers for that. That can be done.
So one more question, sir. What are the challenges of implementing AI in livestock management, and how can they be overcome?
Look, when any technology is being used, AI is a double-edged sword. So everything you have to be aware. With livestock sector, we have to always see that animal welfare is of utmost importance. Like we have to understand the Brambles freedom. Brambles freedom, like there are 5 freedoms which are there. So we have to and moreover, being a veterinarian, uh, taking oath as a veterinarian, you have that you have to do. Moreover, AI can be implemented. Only thing is you have to see that animals should not be in a stress and everything. And moreover, the data that you are uh, inputting, they are very much reliable or replicable. Otherwise, the whole purpose of that one is not coming. Like suppose ChatGPT it was there. Now it is coming. The GPT-4 has come. Yesterday I have seen GPT-4 has come. So it is adapting itself to the new situation. So it is coming up with the upgraded version. So we have to see that also. Like yesterday, Dr. Rasnil, he was saying that with a 96% confidence, he can say that this animal is, whether the animal is in stress or not in stress, it can be determined. Rest 4%, he is skeptical and he is working for that. So that 4% safe. So you have to try for that 4%. Yes, please.
Sir, one more question, sir. So what ethical considerations need to be taken into account when using AI in livestock management?
I think that is not my domain. Means ethical considerations, there will be so many ethical considerations. So only thing is we have to understand that animals are the sentient beings. So they also have life, just like us. So only this thing we have to take an undue stress. We don't have to impose for our own benefit. That has benefit. We are rearing animals only for the benefit of society. And moreover, like the milk, once what happened, one of the very elderly people and a very senior colleague of mine, he told that why not you are working for reducing the cholesterol level in buffalo. So point here is the cholesterol level in buffalo milk is 4 times lower than the cow's milk. And moreover, if free fatty acid and everything is more, that nature has given the animal for its kids, means like for his calves, not for us. We are utilizing it.
100. Next speaker.
So I think the people who are working in the area of ethics, they can better explain this. That will be fine.
Ma'am, still any questions, ma'am?
Yeah. So can AI be used for silent heat in buffaloes?
Yes, like study Dr. Sunil told that he is using deep learning, like based on the collaboration he's having. So that DAI is nothing but 10 years back, when people have started with the deep learning and ML and artificial neural network, it has come up with the AI now. So that is the evolutionary process that will come in the future. It can be used, AI can be used, like the automation of this salivary font patterns that has helped Dr. Patel to determine that whether the animal is in stress or not. So silent stress, this is the major problem in buffaloes that can be used with. We have this cervicovaginal mucus slides. We have this salivary slides, salivary font-like patterns, different kind of fonding pattern. In fact, we also examined that with one of our friend in National Research Center on Advanced, when we studied that, like in horses, when we have trotted them, and then we examine the sweat molecules, then that is also forming the font pattern. The point here is all the biofluids, they will form font pattern. Like there are several proteins like mucin and different kind of electrolytes. They are coming in play. And several estrogen responsive hormones are there. So that is also coming in play. So AI can also be used for determining the salinity. Not right now, but in coming future it will be. It will be.
Okay, madam.
So, sir, thank you, sir, for answering most of the queries. So, dear participants, the
Thank
other
you.
queries will be mailed to you as and when sirs give the answers. So, sir, thank you so much, sir.
Sir, thank you.
Over to Naveen.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure
Thank you,
and we're humbled to have you, sir. Though you're sick, but you have delivered your talk very nicely, sir. It's a very informative session. And I'm happy, sir, that I'm part of your lab, and your lab is most productive lab, always producing. So,
Definitely, Dr. Naveen, as a PhD student from NDRE, he has worked a lot in this area, and he has a very good understanding of this problem. He's a very humble person as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. So,
Slides, stop sharing.
yes, sir. So, the next speaker is also ready. Over to Dr. B. Deepti, Assistant Professor.
A very good morning to everyone. I'm Dr. Deepti, Assistant Professor in the Department of Veterinary Microbiology. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our next speaker, Dr. A.K. Mohanty, Sir, Joint Director, ICAR IVRI, Mukteshwar, Uttarakhand. On behalf of ntrcvsc Gannavaram, I extend my warm welcome to this webinar, sir. Sir is going to talk to us about deep proteomic analysis to understand molecular dynamics of lactation function in mammary epithelial cells. Sir, with your permission, let me read out your brief biodata. Dr. A.K. Mohanty, sir, is serving as Joint Director, Indian Veterinary Research Institute, Mukteshwar, Uttarakhand, India. Previously, he served as Principal Scientist at ICAR NDRI Karnal before joining the current position with experience of 30 years in research and teaching in animal biotechnology. Sir's educational qualifications. Graduated from Odisha University of Agriculture and Technology, Bhubaneswar, India. He did his master's in animal biotechnology, National Dairy Research Institute, Karnal, India. And Sir his PhD from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, India. And he also has a PDF from University of California, Davis. And his current area of research is focused on protein biomarkers associated with milk yield and lactation persistency in cattle, protein biomarkers for early detection of pregnancy in farm animals, sperm-specific biomarkers for semen sexing in cattle, proteomics of milk from different species and their health attributes, mechanism of mammary gland development and differentiation using proteomic approaches, and coordination of the activity for development of vaccine against lumpy skin disease and eradication of PPR from India by 2030. His scientific achievements. He has 2 projects at his credit with committed deliveries, of which 21 are of competitive grants projects which are externally funded. The externally funding is up to maximum of 18 crores. He worked with almost all funding agencies, more than 15 collaborations, including inter-institutional, national, and international. And Sir has at his credit more than 200 peer-reviewed research papers, of which, among which he is a corresponding author for more than 75 research papers. And in these papers are of with high impact in 19 more publications. He has filed 5 Indian patents, 2 technologies are in for transfer and in use, and 3 monoclonal antibodies. Sir has mentored 33 students, 5 PDFs, and 3 BIRACs, and 25 RAs. And he's created world-class research facilities like ABTC, NRCMQ, and MS. And he organized mega scientific events, including international conferences and workshops, and elaborate international exposure. He has elaborate international exposure and linkages. And coming to his Sir's awards and recognitions, he served as consultant to FAO, IAEA, and United Nations Vienna for molecular markers for pregnancy diagnosis in bovines. And he is a recipient of Jawaharlal Nehru Award, ICR, for outstanding postgraduate research work in animal biotechnology. Sir is also an overseas visiting scientist awardee and a fellow of National Academy of Dairy Sciences, India, NADSI, and an associate fellow of National Academy of Veterinary Science, India. Sir, with this introduction, I'm handing over the session to you. Please carry on, sir.
Thank you so much. First of all, I thank for the organizer, Dr. Swarup, for inviting me to present this lecture. And at the same time, you are able to listen me?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, you are not able to listen, huh?
Yes, sir. Now you are audible, sir. You're audible.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I think it was off. Okay. So probably I have to tell again. So thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar, and I'm very happy that you have invited me. And I also congratulate you for organizing this webinar. for the younger students and scientists and the faculties.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you so much for telling so many things about me. In fact, it is my pleasure for this. So now I am sharing the slides for my presentation. Is it coming now?
Yes, sir.
Full?
It is in full mode.
Okay. So the topic of my presentation is earlier it was I have slightly changed, like mass spectrometry and deep proteome analysis of to understand molecular dynamics of lactation function in mammary epithelial cells. So the main purpose of saying this is when you are talking of any protein, why it is going automatically to mute mode. Now you are able to listen now?
Yes, sir. It is clear now, sir.
Yeah. So as I told, you cannot do proteomics without mass spectrometry. So I thought to join this word mass spectrometry. Then subsequently we will go for proteome analysis. So we'll just so I have divided my talk into like I was told that these days I am working as joint director IVRI Mukteswar. Many of you must be knowing. This is the mother center of IVRI, and it was established in the year 1893. So it is a more than 130 years old institute, and which has given so much, more than most of the vaccines and diagnostics which are now in use in India. They are mostly from IVRI Mukteswar, because this is center of excellence for veterinary virology. And at the same time, we are now focusing also on the temperate animal husbandry. So scientists from various disciplines, including microbiology, on all aspects of veterinary sciences are working here and trying to establish a center of excellence in the area of temperate animal production and health. With this background, I'll be going to this thing. Like the outline of my talk is to answer the principle of mass spectrometry. So you can, as I told, you cannot do proteomics without mass spectrometry. So first of all, you have to understand what is mass spectrometry. Then we can use this mass spectrometry technique to analyze any proteins from a biological system. So that's why the second one is to explain how mass spectrometry based techniques can be used in proteomics with specific reference to mammary epithelial cells, which are associated with the milk production in case of animals. So just to introduce the topic, when we talk of any substance and you are going to analyze them, they have to be converted into small moieties or ions, which can be subsequently measured in a machine. And that is machine, especially for biological system, we can measure the mass of those substances by using mass spectrometry. So study of various molecules based on its mass is called as mass spectrometry. A spectra, so when you allow any spectra to be introduced into mass spectrometer, then a spectra of different masses can be obtained, which can be matched with known masses or pattern of masses obtained from theoretical breakdown of the whole compound. I'll be coming to that afterwards. Just for the present, you understand that once you allow a specific mass, unknown mass or pattern of mass obtained, whatever mass is generated by the machine, they will be matched with the theoretical masses. So the concept is so universal that a wide variety of compounds can be identified and characterized. So these days we are talking of deep analysis. Deep analysis means it may be proteins, it may be metabolites, or it may be other kind of ions, where there is an admixture of billions and millions of small moieties. So virtually you cannot think of, rather you cannot comprehend how to analyze them. So mass spectrometry has actually revolutionized the entire concept of analyzing various small molecules, where clearly you can identify the spectrum of all the molecules in the form of mass and identify them. So the first research on mass analysis goes back in the early decades, 20th century, by J. Thomson, who was awarded Nobel Prize in 1906 for his creation of prototype to measure M/Z ratio of mass to charge. So when you talk of the M/Z means suppose you allow a particular mass to enter into the machine mass spectrometer, it will give a mass. But at the same time, the mass will have some charge. That's why actual mass, absolute mass, can actually be known if you divide the mass divided by the charges. Because the moment you add the charges, it will enhance its molecular mass. That's why you take a ratio. So, but that ratio actually give you the single mass which can be compared among the various molecules, for which many scientists, they have also been awarded the Nobel Prize. So mass spectrometry in MS, mass to charge ratio of ions is measured to identify and quantify molecules present in various samples. So as I told, when you are taking a charged molecule and allow this to enter into the mass spectrometer, then it can be deflected under an electromagnetic field, can be forced to travel at speed which is proportional to the mass of the molecule. So once you put it will travel in the machine, and ultimately on the basis of its mass, you can measure its M/Z. So thus, a heavier mass, as the rule says, if the molecule is heavier, it will move slow. If the molecule is lighter, it will move faster. So the resolution will be there. All the molecules will travel accordingly, and you can clearly differentiate what are the various M/Z of the various moieties which are going. And again, when you talk of any mass spectrometer, in that case, you have to see the quality of mass spectrometers. Very high resolution mass spectrometers, low resolution mass spectrometers, on the basis of their applications. We'll be coming to that also. So when you allow these moieties to enter into MS, so different masses thus can be plotted according to the time required to reach the detector, that is time of flight or TOF system. And relative frequency of that mass can be measured in terms of heights of the peak. You can see the peaks, various peaks. That nothing but, suppose you think of any peptides or protein which have been broken down into small peptides, and allow these peptides to enter into the mass spec. Once it enters into the machine, you can find various masses you can see, and these masses are nothing but the M/Z values of individual peaks. This represents a particular peptide. Here you may ask me a question, what is this then? What is this then? Not necessarily every peak is representing one peptide. Maybe this peptide and this mass, they belong to the same peptide because they are either broken or they belong to a part of another peptide belonging to the same protein. That's why we are getting millions of these kind of masses. So can you think of that when so many bars of different M/Z values are produced, how come you will be able to identify those molecules? So we'll be coming to that. Before that, instrumentation will go. When we talk of mass spec, consists of three parts: ion source, mass analyzer, and detector system. You'll be wondering how this works. So only certain type of mass spectra are used for proteomics, like MALDI, CELD or electrospray ion source, or time of flight quadrupole Fourier transformation. So here, suppose you are taking your sample, say for example in peptide or metabolites, that will be force that will be subjected to different small droplets, ionized, which are ionized, and subsequently this enter into a source. This is sample, this is the source. Source means the beginning of the entry of the machine, and this is the analyzer. So slowly it will enter into this, and it will hit a detector, and those signals you'll find in the terms of peaks in the computer. So that will give you mass by charge ratio, which subsequently will be deconvoluted in order to get a particular value which can be fed into a search engine and identify them. We'll be coming to that. So just to briefly describe mass spectrometry, there are many methods. When you are using these techniques, this is the instrumentation part and of the mass spectrometer, and there are many methods for ionization. So the first and foremost thing, that how efficiently you are able to analyze the molecules so that you're able to analyze them. For proteomics purpose, fast atomic bombardment is the most suitable, includes multi-ESI, that is matrix assisted laser disruption ionization, electrospray ionization, atmospheric pressure chemical ionization, atmospheric pressure photon ionization. So those things are normally used for, but for proteomics, we normally use multi and ESI. So first coming to the multi. So as I told, matrix assisted laser disruption ionization, sample is mixed with matrix and allowed to crystallize on a plate. You can see this is a multi plate. And once you put the samples here, small molecules along with the matrix, like 3,5-disinapinic acid or cinnamic acid, alpha cyano or alpha matrix, DSP. These are the various matrices which are added to the sample in order to crystallize them. So they are very stable. Then laser is fired on these matrices at a speed of 100x, produces ions. So the intensity is so intense, they will be all charged, and subsequently they will go through the mass analyzer, and subsequently, because this is source, and from the source itself they will enter into the mass analyzer, which will be subsequently analyzed. So the energy from the laser is absorbed by the matrix, and then the matrices transfer the energy to the analyte. As a result, analyte is ionized into gas phase, and gas phase analyte travels in the electric field. So here in this case, once it is in the gas phase, they will travel in the electric field. The second ionization, that is source, is electrospray ionization. So sample remains volatile, as you can see here in this case. Sample remains volatile in this case. First of all, introduced highly charged needle. So this is a kind of needle which will produce droplet containing ions, and these droplet containing ions will evaporate from the surface of the droplets like this. So this one is very highly, this hot needle source from which these droplets will be coming out, and subsequently these ionized droplets will enter into the analyzer and forces charged droplets from the needle, and solvent evaporation leaves only charged samples. These charged samples will be entering into the mass spectrometer, and then you can analyze them. So now next coming is, you have a source. First you have sample, you have source. Third one is mass analyzer, because once you are getting all ionized moieties, they have to be analyzed. So this is the segment of instrument which separates the ion based on the M by Z. M by Z means mass by charge. So when so many droplets, so many ions are being produced, they will have specific charges. So how can you analyze? So there are many different type of mass analysis. So one is time of flight, one is quadruple analyzer Q. It has a low resolution up to 1 Dalton, but fast and cheaper. Ion trap mass analyzer, this is a good resolution, all in one mass analyzer. Magnetic Sekra analyzer, high resolution, exact mass. Ion cyclotron resonance, high resolution, exact mass, costly. So if you combine, many different analyzers can be combined. So these different analyzers can be put in tandem. So not only one analyzer, more than one analyzers can be put in tandem, and with various combinations like quadruple, triple quadruple, multi QTOF, ESI QTOF, LCSI, MS. So there are many different ways how we can combine these mass analyzers in order to achieve your targets, how to analyze a particular sample. So next, coming to the mass analyzer time of flight. Suppose you are talking of TOF, time of flight, multi-TOF. So this is one kind of analyzer. Ions are mobilized by high voltage, travel through this tube, deflected by this reflectron, that is ion mirror, increase the path length. As you doubles down on the top, this increases the path length, so that the resolution, because they are moving in a particular direction, will be good, and therefore increased resolution. Time taken to reach the detector is directly proportional with the mass of the analytes. If one particular mass reaches faster, that is lighter. If a particular mass reaches late, that means that is heavier. This way, the better is the analyzer, better is the resolution, then better is the analysis. And this will be very much applicable for your samples. Next one is quadruple mass analyzer. Like I told, this is a very low resolution mass analyzer. Two different charges. There are 4 bars you can see, quadruple, that's why. 2 are negative, 2 are positively charged, 2 pairs of metal rods. Ion travels down the quadruple between the rods. Only ions of certain mass by charge will be able to travel between these rods, which are actually inside these. Some are going out, they will simply go out. Other ions collide and will be lost with the rods, and spectrum produced by scanning the voltage. Here, this is a low resolution. If you identify some molecules or biomarkers by high resolution mass spectrometers, subsequently you need to validate them. So if you want to validate in large number of samples or animals, in that case, this quadruple system is more appropriate. So for validation purposes. Another is ion trap mass analyzer, where ions, once they're generated, some of you must be knowing about ion traps or orbit traps. So ion traps are ion trapping devices. In the MALDI, tough. Once an ion goes, it is lost. But in an ion trap, all the ions are trapped. That make use of 3-dimensional quadruple field to trap and analyze ions. So this was invented by Dr. Paul in 1809. So it offers a good mass resolving power. It is used to trap ions in confined space. So that MS and MS and MS means mass. If you break it down, that will be MS. If you break it further down, that is MS. That's why many times you'll find term MS, MS2, MS3. So this depends upon the quality of the mass spectrometers. So analysis both can be used in same space. Different ion trap devices have been developed, like 3D ion trap, linear ion trap, orbit trap, etc. So now coming high resolution mass spectrum, tandem MS. That means the analyzers are used in many different combinations. I told. Different mass are kept in tandem. It is done basically to fragment the precursor ions. Quadruple, magnetic sector quadruple, time of flight. This is one analyzer. Time of flight is another analyzer. Time of flight, tough. So if you talk of MALDI, tough, that's MALDI is a source, tough is an analyzer, second is another analyzer. So combination of various analyzers are being used. So all ions are separated by fragmentation. So you have to fragment the molecule first of all in order to fit the range in which a mass spectrometer can analyze those masses. So there are multiple methods how to fragment. The machine itself fragments in order to generate MS, MS2, MS3. by CID, collision-induced dissociation, electron capture by ECD or ETD, and chemical-assisted fragmentation, many different. Normally, we use CID or ECD or ETD, depending upon the applications. So now suppose you have generated some data. You are getting these kind of peaks, how to analyze them. So the MS generates data in the form of list of ions detected in the form of M by Z. For proteomics purpose, these M by Z needs to be transformed into all possible peptides because they are broken. So it will take the help of various algorithms in order to join them, and it will all possible peptides will be identified. Then data will be combined. It will give us a sequence and data analysis of two types: identification of the compound and differential quantitation of the compounds in two or more samples. Suppose you are taking a single mixture. In that case, you are going to identify as many moieties as possible. But if you want to compare in between two samples where you want to discover a biomarker, in that case, there are many different ways how to either label or label-free quantitation, where you can compare in between two. Suppose this is sample number 1, this is sample number 2, identify them and see the concentration of a particular peptide is more or less. Then use the machine language in order to see whether it is upregulated, fold change, and other things can be seen. So this spectrum shows the fragmentation of a peptide, which is used to determine the sequence of the peptide via search algorithm. So when you are getting so much of peptide, so much of spectra, you have to use various search algorithms in order to convert them into peptides. Those peptides will be subsequently used for searching the database and subsequently identify particular protein. So how can I apply? There are so many applications. Almost every discipline of science is benefited from MS, like proteomics. You can identify a particular protein from the mass of its peptide, detect specific post-translational modifications, quantitative, relative or absolute protein in given sample. You can determine some structure, folding, interactions, enzyme reaction also, drug discovery, clinical testing, genomics, environment, and geology. But majorly, people are using in proteomics, metabolomics, drug discovery, and identifying the contaminants. So now coming to with this background on the proteomics, we are now coming to the, mass spectrometry, we are coming to the proteomics, where how proteomics is applied, being used, using how mass spectrometry is used to discover molecules related to the protein. So what is proteomics? Like you are talking genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics. Genomics is the gene architecture present in the genome. Transcriptomics means the genes which are getting transcribed into mRNA or RNAs. Then subsequently the mRNA are the transcripts which are correlating with the proteins, and those transcripts are converted into the proteins, translated into proteins. So in proteomics, there are thousands of proteins which have been translated, and those proteins you are going to identify. So it is different from protein chemistry in the sense, in protein chemistry, you are only identifying one protein, but in proteomics, you are going for identifying number of proteins. So proteomics is a branch of science to study a large set of proteins together and simultaneously, and it is different from the classical approach where usually one or two proteins could be studied at a time. Here, thousands of proteins are studied. We know that biological function are outcome of many proteins working together. Therefore, proteomics is helping us to understand the biological problems in more perfect way. These days, we are talking of systems biology, trying to understand the system from various perspectives of proteomics and metabolomics. and using mass spectrometry, you can do that. So mass spectrometry can generate information about all proteins and identification, quantitation, modifications, interactions, and functions. So how can you do that? Now coming to methodology. There are 3 different steps to most proteomics experiments. Number 1, you have to prepare the sample. When you are this is the toughest first stage. Unless your sample preparation is good, you cannot identify the proteins because mass spec has its own limitations. So preparation of a complex protein mixture from a sample has to be done first. Then separation of protein mixture. Either you take this extracted protein, digest them into smaller peptides, or you can resolve. Suppose a protein mixture is mixed with high abundant and low abundant proteins. So you prepare the peptides. In that case, high abundant proteins, peptides may mask the low abundant peptides. So when you allow this to identify through mass spectrometry, the high abundant peptides will mask the low abundant peptides. So many times we need to resolve them. So we need to go for separation of protein mixture, resolving in simpler fractions by liquid chromatography, either by SDS phase, 2D phase, or through HPLC. You have to resolve them, fractionate them, and subsequently use them for identification. So identification and quantitation of proteins within mixture is done by mass spec. Now, extraction of protein is done by various methods using chemical buffer, sonication, precipitation. Protocols are available, SOPs are available, and low salt in protein sample is desirable. If you have more salt, it will actually make problem for identification mass spectrometry. So we have to make sure that we are using a desalting step in order to remove as much as salt possible, so it doesn't unnecessarily hinder in the process of identification during mass spectrometry. So prevention of contamination, degradation, and consider difficult to purify proteins. Sometimes you have membrane proteins, membrane bound or more lipidous proteins, as in case of brain tissue. So you have to do a lot of manipulations in order to prepare a set of proteins and subsequently peptides which are suitable for analysis in the mass spec. Now, separation techniques, how we are going to separate. There are basically 2 types of separate techniques, gel-based and gel-free. So in gel-based separation, the extracted proteins are either separated by SDS phase in single dimension or 2 dimension using 2-dimensional electrophoresis of proteins like the one you can see here, are separated based on isoelectric point followed by SDS phase, which further resolve protein on the basis of molecular weight. So this is a colored gel, but there are all protein spots you can see by 2-dimensional gel electrophoresis. So you can pick up these individual protein spots, identify them separately, or you can go for a liquid chromatography based system where you can use HPLC. It is a gel-free method where a complex protein mixture is resolved into different fractions using different kind of chromatographic techniques like ion exchange, gel filtration, affinity chromatography. These columns are fitted with the HPLC, which will fractionate your protein samples, and subsequently you can go for analysis. So proteomics combines 2 major techniques, 2-dimensional gel electrophoresis or gel-free proteomics, 2 type of machine, either multi-top or nano LC MS, or that is called LC MS. MS can be used for identification of the peptides. This is a 2-dimensional protocol, like you have samples, mammary epithelial cells, MECs. You have prepared the sample. You have to rehydrate, passive rehydration in a tray. Put that in a IF system, isoelectric focusing system. This is 1 dimension. Then keep that gel here, strip. These are the strips you can see, and subsequently run that in a horizontal direction. That's why 1st dimension and 2nd dimension. And you can subsequently stain them to get the protein spots. You can pick them up and to prepare the peptides by digesting with trypsins, and subsequently you allow them to enter into the LC, MS or MALDI top. And you will get various spectra like this for identification, which represents this in the form of M by Z. So these are the various machines which are actually used, right? HPLC or protein purification systems, and various image analyzers and other things. This is a MALDI machine, you can see. This is a LCMS machine, and this is a MALDI top. So this is Orbitrap I told. This Orbitrap machine by ion trap protocol, you can analyze. This is a auto analyzer. Samples are going to the LC, liquid chromatography system. From liquid chromatography, it is going to the source where the molecules are ionized. This will enter into the mass spec. In ion trap, all the ions are trapped. Subsequently, they will be released, and in the analyzer, it will analyze. But in the MALDI top, the protocol is little different. Here, the ions are traveling in the top, reflectron coming, hitting to the detector, and you can find the spectra. The ultimate aim is same, to identification, but their methods are different. So now you have how to go for MS-based experiments. Like you have sample preparation, sample fractionation. Go for HDS space, excise these proteins, digest these peptide bands. So you get various peptide mixture. Either you can do this, or you can take this in a append of tube, add this trypsin and digest it, prepare the peptides. Those peptides, chromatography subsequently are purified and desalted. Desalted peptides are allowed to either use for MALDI top, where it will be crystallized, or the peptide chromatography through electrospray ionization, where all these peptides will be sprayed out into smaller droplets, and those droplets will be used for identification. Please. So subsequently, you can see here that you are getting various mass. This is MS, I told. So you are getting only the M by Z values. But subsequently, if this MS is broken into smaller peptides, you'll get a MS. So this is a precursor ion, and these are the daughter ions. So these daughter ions are analyzed, and sequence of the peptides are based on various algorithms on the base of mass and other things. That is a very difficult things to analyze. Actually, only machine does. Manually also you can do, but it will take you a lot of time and sometimes may lead to incorrectness. So next one is workflow of data analysis in mass spectrometry. Once you have generated the data, then you have to use them, how to analyze them. Conversion to and use of open data format. There are many different data format according to the machine that you have used. Spectrum identification with a search engine. I will be coming to the search engine. Then validation of the identifications. Protein interference, you have to rule out interference of various proteins for identification. Then you have to quantitate how much was the intensity. Then organization local data management systems, interpretation of the protein list, transfer to public repository. That database that you are seeing, either genome database or protein database, everything has gone through these kind of things in order to go into a public data repository. So that is a Orbitrap. This is a QTOF, quadruple top system. Here ESI system, electrospray ionization, and here there is a CID, collision induced dissociation system, and this is a TOF, time of flight. So this is also another mass spectrometer I can use. Now protein identification. When you are identifying, all peptides in the given sample are listed by M by Z. Protease cut at defined site, and the proteins cut with an enzyme will give a series of peptides. Different proteins will give different series of peptides, and this peptide mass fingerprinting. So like DNA fingerprinting, here you are getting a peptide mass fingerprinting. So like say, for example, I tell, you have taken alcohol dehydrogenase, 374 amino acids, because you will be having a question. This will give the same peptide, but you just see the comparison. Alcohol dehydrogenase 7, alcohol dehydrogenase beta 2, 375 amino acids. It gives 26 peptides. After digestion, it gives 25 peptides. But you see the matches, there is no match except only two peptides, 885.54, 580.33. Only except all others are different. So suppose mass spectrometer is going to identify. So that will get a plethora of all these peptides. And here also, and there are entirely different mass. So by taking all these peptides together, accepting these two, it will say, okay, these peptides belong to this protein and these peptides belong to this protein by using search engines. So mass of two peptides from two different proteins can be same, but their sequence may be different. So if it is same, by the way, what to do then? Then you have to go for MS. You have to break that mass into smaller peptides. So to avoid such misinterpretation, MS is done so that every peptide results in typical daughter fragments. I told there is a precursor ion, there is a daughter ion. From MS spectrum, we can work out the peptide sequence, and a peptide of more than 7 amino acids should be sufficient to uniquely identify a particular protein. Now we'll be coming to search engine, which will search your protein from the database by using Xtandem, Mascot, Sequest. So many different search engines are there, which will identify, annotate your peptides and identify, and subsequently you can identify them. Then once you generate, you have to use a lot of, you will generate various proteins, identify thousands of proteins. What to do next? You have to use bioinformatics technique in order to identify, analyze your data. So there are many software packages for data analysis. A large amount of proteome data generated from MS need to be brought to some biological conclusion from which relationship among identified proteins can be established. Example, cake pathways, wiki, gene ontology, David, visualization, integrated discovery, this is David, cytoscape, path vision, reactome, panthers, and so many. So this is overall basics of proteomics, mass spectrometry, then proteomics. Now will come how you are going to use proteomics and mass spectrometry for your applications. Today, here I'll take another 20 minutes for giving a view exactly how we can understand the lactation process in case of animals by using proteomics techniques. So proteome-wide analysis of mass mammary epithelial cells reveals protein signature associated with lactation or lactogenic differentiation. Like we told, bovine mammary gland is constituted of various ducts which ends in the alveoli, and where the milk is synthesized by the help of mammary epithelial cells. Like here alveolus, lobule, alveolus. The innermost layer of the alveolus is layered by the mammary epithelial cells. So alveolar mammary epithelial cells reflect the milk-producing ability of farm animals, and terminally differentiated MECs are involved in synthesis and secretion of milk proteins. So if you say a lactating animal, so there is early lactation, mid lactation, then late lactation. So the persistency means what? Animal is constantly producing milk in a stage after the from peak yield till late stage, somewhere in between stage. So if we used to see what are the various proteins which are produced during lactation, the best way is to go for epithelial cells, either in vitro or in vivo from the animals. So there are expression of protein at specific time points. Peak yield is there. And you can, if you take sample from different time points, then you can actually assess what are the proteins associated in the lactation persistence. So milk producing ability differs among the individual cows. So what we did is we tried to isolate the mammary epithelial cells from milk by using various techniques. Isolation of mammary epithelial cells, then subjected them to two-dimensional gel electrophoresis, digesting this protein by MS. For MS, we went for global proteomics, differential proteomics. So then try to identify some proteins which may be possible biomarkers for lactation. So here you can see some milk, and we have taken some dynabits. And the milk is having mammary milk somatic cells. The milk somatic cells almost contain 5% of mammary epithelial cells. So there are many proteins which are very much specific to epithelial cells. What we did is we took a magnetic bead on the surface of which cytokeratins are specific to mammary epithelial cells, especially cytokeratin 18. So this is secondary antibody against our primary antibody of against cytokeratin. And when you add this one to the MEC into somatic cells, that will capture the mammary epithelial cells. These magnets can be captured by a magnet. These magnetic beads can be captured by magnets so that you can separate out these cells. You can see the epithelial cells, which are sitting on the surface of which sitting the magnetic beads. So the purified epithelial cells, and see whether actually cells are known. And after that, you have to actually, when from a mixture you are identifying all, isolating the cells, you have to make sure they are real cells that you are looking for. So epithelial cells will produce various milk proteins or genes. So went for this, cytokeratin 8, alpha-lactalbumin, kappa-casein, beta-lactoglobulin, epithelial membrane antigen, and went for real-time PCR to see the various genes. You can go for also Western blot. Then what we thought is, okay, let us now see when the animal is giving milk, you expect that during peak lactation, all the expression of the proteins will be optimally expressed. So we took the milk somatic cells from the peak lactating animals and try to analyze the proteins which are expressed in the mammary epithelial cells. This is a publication like proteome analysis difference. They are functionally different bovine epithelial, mammary epithelial isolated from milk. Here, this is two-dimensional gel. All the protein extracted were subjected to two-dimensional gel electrophoresis, picked up individual spots, digested them into peptides. Those peptides are subjected to mass spec and subsequently identified. So some 158 proteins were identified. But it's very much less. So we thought, okay, let us resolve it. I told we have to resolve it. So take subcellular fractionation, cytosolic membrane, nuclear, cytoskeletal, run HDS space them, digest them, go for MSMS. Or take some total sample, run them in a gel, one HDS space, digest them, and subsequently go for LC-MSMS. Now suppose, for example, here, 1D HDS space, you have protein bands, cut them into small pieces, digest them with peptide, trypsins, whatever peptides will be produced, then go for identifying them by using the LCMS. This will give you a number of peptides. So here this is the cytoskeletal membrane nuclear fractions. We took again smaller pieces, digest them, and try to identify. Some 500 proteins are identified. So if you see, total identified proteins are 610, and you just got a match. Now question is how to analyze them. I told you have to go for bioinformatics by gene ontology, pathway analysis, network analysis, global proteome data. So we try to analyze from the lactation perspective that what are the various proteins which are actually helping in the process of lactation. Say, for example, proteins found to have positive regulation during lactation, non-proteins from the database. Then you can have proteins which are regulate the cell shape, because maintenance of the cell shape is essential for the mammary epithelial cells for producing the milk in the alveoli. Then cell survival. So there may be some pro-apoptotic factor which help the cells to survive, so that the cell will be continuously producing, will be able to produce the milk. Here you will have a very inquisitive questions. What about high producing and low producing cattle? Can you relate this with number of epithelial cells? Answer is true, yes. So probably the number of terminally differentiated epithelial cells are more, and they're producing efficiently in comparison to the low producing cattle. We'll be coming to that. Cell differentiation. The cell has to be differentiated lactogenically. Normally, a epithelial cell is differentiated cell, but you have to treat that in such a way that it has to be further differentiated for producing the milk proteins. So in a system, hormone is working, but in a laboratory setup, you have to target, you have to use various hormones into the media in order to induce them for lactogenic differentiation, so that they can produce the milk proteins. There may be negative regulators. Apoptosis must be taking place, which will kill the cells, so that is a continuous process. So this also differs from animal to animal. So when you are generating so much of data, 600 protein, even thousands of proteins, you have to go for analysis by using various networks. I told gene ontology analysis, David, Panthers, Cake's pathway, and other things can be used in order to find out some valid conclusion, like what are the various molecular pathways which are existing, and amongst those pathways which are actually highly represented during lactation process. So now question will say, I have identified many proteins from a lactating animals. What about high and low producing cattle? So we went for a 2D dyes proteomics analysis epithelial cells during lactation, try to find out what is the, can you find out some markers? Yes, we can. So these are the epithelial cells you can see, isolated from high versus low producing cattle in milk. Soluble low producing, soluble high producing colon freeze, two-dimensional SDS space, take the sample, digest them into peptides, then go for two dyes, these are proteins, see the peaks. Here only proteins you are taking. Then subject them, this will labeled 2D dyes, differential jelly electrophoresis, that is another class. So you can see these protein spots. The yellow, that means there is no difference. Red spots are highly upregulated, green spots are highly downregulated. This way you can see differentially regulated proteins. And we picked them up, digested them by trypsin, and those tryptic peptides were identified by mass spectrometry. And you can see a number of proteins, almost some 26 proteins, which are differentially regulated in high versus low producing. And we can, many proteins which are highly expressed in the high producing cattle. Majorly, you can see a majority of the proteins are down-regulated, highly expressed in low-producing cattle. So, if a particular protein is highly expressed low-producing cattle, that means they may have some negative effect, like MFGE8. We saw that it is highly expressed in case of high-producing cattle. So, it may have a positive regulation in lactation. So, we decided, okay, let us go further. We have done many functional characterizations. Just for your exposure, I am just describing one. So subsequently, we saw they're making groups. In the low producing cattle, a group of proteins are very highly upregulated. Then you can see we went for a real-time PCR. See, actually, in a high producing cattle, this is highly expressed in comparison to low producing cattle. And it goes high up to as high as 47 to 50 times. So MFG8, high expression as compared to the low yielding cattle. And so we thought, okay, let us go to analyze this protein. Actually, it has some role. When you want to analyze the function of a particular protein in the lab, you have to have a cell line for this. So we developed a buffalo mammary epithelial cell line for the first time in our lab and established this cell line And whatever experiments are now done with respect to lactation biology, we are using this cell line for our study to understand the function of various proteins. So you can see immunocytochemical analysis of the epithelial cells, and subsequently we thought, okay, let us how to analyze the function. Either you silence a gene or you knock out the gene, either CRISPR-Cas technology or shRNA. Because in the beginning we thought of down-regulating the expression of particular genes like MFG8, we went for shRNA. Now we have gone for CRISPR-Cas based knockout of these genes. Two genes we have taken, MFG8 and S100A8. But today I'm just telling MFG8 by shRNA, which was published in the Frontiers Cell and Developmental Biology. What exactly does it do? So it is known as lactadherin, and it is there are many names unknown for normal adults, measurably women, metastatic breast cancer, lactation also. But what is its role in lactation? So this is a 52 kilodalton protein or 47 kilodalton. Physiological function is bridge the ligand. The lectin-like domains engage this serine, the second EGF domains, and leading to phagocytosis apoptotic cell. This is the description which is available. But we thought of analyzing its role in lactation. So it must be playing a role during mammary gland development or apoptosis, something like culture model, epithelial cell, mammary epithelial cells. Stable shRNA transfection was done against the MFGE8. Then subsequently extracted all the proteins from the epithelial cells, went for a differential expression analysis by using ITRAC, a technique, label technique, isobaric techniques, in order to identify differentially expressed proteins and functional activity relationship, string, cytoscape, reactome, protein-protein interaction and pathways. Then various cellular study like BRD-WASE, MTT, neutral lead, caspase, and so many things. This is a shRNA-based technique where you have to go for silencing the transcript. I'll not speak into that. Here only you have to see after the transfection of the shRNA, you can see the changes. There is a down regulation of the expression of the GAP protein, which fluoresces in the UV light. And here you can see once there was a down regulation or silencing of the MFG8, the cells lost their shape, the entering the congregation, and because of which it lost the ability to produce the milk protein, and there is slow growth. I'll come to that. So this is a normal cell, and this is a silent cell, you can see. So you can see we went for, okay, let us go for beta-casein expression analysis, where in a normal cell, when it is expressed, there is down regulation of beta-casein to a larger extent, up to 80-fold change was 86% down regulated, 86-fold down regulation, and the expression of beta-casein was highly down regulated. That means the shRNA was successful, which was able to down regulate the expression of the MFGE8. Subsequently, what we did, we extracted the proteins, took normal, then took knockout cells, extracted the proteins, digested the peptides, labeled them with ITRAC reagents, mixed them, then fractionated with HPLC. All those fractions are subjected to mass spectrometry. Then you produce the M by Z spectra identified by various search engines. And we identified a lot of differentially expressed protein. Some we identify almost 4,500 proteins, out of which 800 proteins were differentially expressed. And subsequently, they were analyzed by using quantitative real-time PCR, stable transfection of buffalo epithelial cells, cell-grown confluence assay, wound healing assay, transwell migration assay. So many different techniques were used in order to see the functions. Even if when by disrupting a particular gene, you are able to change expression of 4,800 different proteins differential expression. That means there must be many transcription factors which are also regulating the process. So we went for transcription modulated upon knockdown of MFG8, you can see, and subsequently did lot of analysis by MTT, BRDU, Caspase, and Western blot analysis. And we came to the conclusion, we made a pathways, postulated systemic pathways of MAG8 and downstream regulators, and subsequently has come up with some conclusion. MFG8 suppression results in reduced growth of mammary epithelial cells by autocrine or paracrine mechanism, results in induction of transcription factors such as cyclin D1 and these proteins, many others for modulating the cytoskeletal associated proteins, cell cycle regulators. MFG8 plays role in signaling of mammary gland developmental remodeling, and this study through proteomics examination has underscored its importance in cellular homeostasis, and this also reduces the expression of various milk proteins. So that way, that means if I am able to see differentially expressed protein in many of these epithelial cells, that means they must have definite role during lactation. And MFG8, one of them, and there are hundreds of proteins. If you characterize all of them, actually you'll be able to identify the role of various proteins during lactation. So just to sum up the entire process, that means by identifying all the proteins which are a mirror image of the various transcripts, you are able to analyze the signaling process and molecular mechanism, what is happening in the lactocytes, mammary epithelial cells, which are the precursor cells for the production of milk. And you can do many more and do a lot of analysis subsequently. And there are so many things to be done. Without wasting much time, this is a work of more than 10 years time with so many students, postdoc, funding agencies who have contributed immensely. And thank you so much. If you have any question, you can ask me.
Sir, that was a great talk and it's quite informative. Thank you very much for enlightening our audience on mass spectrometry, right from the basics, and then how it's employed in distinguishing different proteins, the proteomic analysis of mammary epithelial cells from the milk, and how these are the biological process are directly regulated by these proteins, and the role of MFG8 on signaling of mammary gland development remodeling. Thank you very much, sir. We'll check for a few questions from our audience and we'll let you know, sir.
Yeah, sure. I just quickly went through because time is less and there is a parallel meeting going on. So if there are some questions, some of the participants can ask.
Yes, sir. We know, sir. You might be very busy, but you somehow found time for our webinar.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Some people are asking. Anand Kumar, I think Dr. Anand Kumar is asking some question, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, good morning, sir. This is Anand Kumar. How are you, sir?
Yeah, Dr. Anand, how are you? I am seeing you after a long time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very glad to be with you, sir, with the college lecture. So
Yeah.
before COVID, we met. Afterwards, we couldn't wait. I'm really thankful to you. You have helped us a lot in giving the buccal memory epithelial cells. Really accommodated me in your laboratory for a couple of days that time. We had
The
MOE
same-
also with you.
Yeah, same cell line we are using, for our study now. Lot of
Yes,
studies
sir.
have been done. So this is a very
Yeah.
proven cell line.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, in fact, that helped us a lot to execute a couple of research projects. And yours is a core proteomics stream, trying to learn for the nuances of the proteomics. Thank you very much, sir, for giving a lecture to the college on the eve of this 25-year celebrations. We're glad to have you with us today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Sir, it's a nice presentation, sir. Myself, Naveen, sir. So, nice presentation, sir. I really thank you, sir. Two words I would like to tell about Mohanty, sir. while he was a principal scientist in NDRI, he used to organize many training programs. Whenever I used to call him and I asked, sir, can I get sample for proteomic analysis? He used to say yes, all the time, yes. And while I was a student in PhD also, I used to ask many questions to sir about this proteomics, because sir is having a biggest facility in NDRI, all multi-top big MSMS machines. So apart from he is a high research impact factor personality, he is a very down-to-earth personality, very friendly. In spite of his busyness, I just called him and sir, we are celebrating 25 years of our college celebrations, 20 silver jubilee, sir. I request you to present. Sir said yes immediately. So without hesitation, sir said yes. I felt very happy because of his stature. He could able to accept it. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for accepting us from all the organizing team and from our college and from all the university also, sir. So
thank you. Thank you, Dr. Navin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
And you can bring the students to Mukteshwar. It's such a nice place. And this is mother campus of Iwavas. It's a visiting place in Nainital, in fact. So
Sure,
nearer
sir.
to Nainital.
Yeah.
You can bring the students and study too. They will get a brief of the history of Iwavas.
Sure, sir.
They have started from here. So the journey of veterinary research institutes in India started from this place.
Yes,
and,
sir.
Many new things are happening here, like next generation vaccines and various other aspects.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. We will,
Thank you,
in the days to come, sir, we will try to bring students. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I think there is no question. These are just appreciation. Thank you so much. But if you have any questions, you can write me a mail. So because a parallel meeting is going on, so I have to log off. But still, I can answer a couple of questions if they are there.
Sir, one question, sir. Do we need
Susmita, I think, coordinating the activities?
Deepti is coordinating, sir.
Deepti is coordinating, yes.
Sir, do we need to go, can we go directly from SDS page, single dimension to DICE, or do we need to do 2D page also, sir?
No, it is separate. 1D separate, 2D separate. So once you've done a 1D, you cannot go further. First up, you have to subject the protein to PI-based separation. So then once in a strip you are doing this PI-based separation, you can take that strip, put on the SDS page profile, then go for a 1D SDS page. So because on the basis of the PI isoelectric point, it has been separated, then subsequently it will be separated on the basis of molecular size. So you have to do separately for that.
Okay, sir. Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
But in 1D SDS space, in a particular band, you may get multiple proteins. But in 2D SDS space, whatever spots you are seeing, they are all single proteins. That is the beauty of it. And you are getting a map of the proteome map of a particular cell or bacteria, whatever biological systems.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. It's nice. Thank you so much for inviting me, and nice to see you all. There must be many participants. I cannot see them, but I hope they have at least got a basic of mass spectrometry and proteomics. And in future, we can interact more.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So can I leave?
Yes.
If anybody there, otherwise I can leave the presentation. And I think there is one more presenter who is waiting for the presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sushmita, madam.
Naveen, can you introduce the next speaker, Dr. Jaykumar?
Yes, sir. Sushmita, madam is there, sir.
Okay.
Sushmita, madam.
Yeah, Naveen.
Madam,
Can
yes, ma'am. Over to you.
So can we go to the next session?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So during this webinar, in the third session of today's webinar, I'm happy to introduce Dr. Jayakumar Shivalingam, sir, who is a graduate from Thanuvas and did his MBSc in Animal Genetics and Breeding from ICR NDRA Karnal. He got his Master of Intellectual Property Law from IGNOU. Also obtained postgraduate diploma in Technology Management in Agriculture from University of Hyderabad and NAM, Hyderabad. He did his PhD in Animal Genetics and Breeding from ICR NDRA Karnal. He worked as scientist at ICR NRC on Yak, Dirang, Arunachal Pradesh. He is a scientist and senior scientist at National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources, Karnal. Currently, sir is working as senior scientist at Directorate of Poultry Research, Hyderabad, and he also published many research papers in high impact factor journals. Sir, we are very happy to have you here in this webinar. And I hand over the session to you, sir. You can please share your screen and go on with the lecture, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the nice introduction. Thanks a lot. And maybe now I'll be sharing the screen also, ma'am. I think the screen is visible, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Sir, make it to full screen mode, sir.
Yes, first of all, I express my thankfulness to Dr. Naveen also, who is coordinating all this program. And the topic that has been, ma'am, I think that I am audible, ma'am, over there.
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Thank you. Means the topic that has been assigned is this application of this next generation sequencing technology in livestock genomics. Means right from the basics, like previously we were going for this mass selection program. After that, we are going for this different selection programs, being crossbreeding programs we have carried out. And now we are in the era of this genomics, where we do have this different methodologies, different things that we are following in this livestock genomics, either in the form of genome sequencing or this transcriptome sequencing, microRNA or long non-coding RNA, the different methodologies we are just following it up also. And before going directly to this application of this NGS technologies in this livestock genomics, like how we have initiated this for this genetic improvement of our animals, like that in general to the livestock as well as some way in this poultry also. And right from the beginning, like there is a book chapter by Dr. Saxena and Koluri in this application of genetics in genomics in poultry science. And it indicates like what are the different techniques or methodologies that we have followed over the period of time. Right from this one, rightly it speaks in specifically in terms of poultry. Like the mass selection initially we have followed, then trap nesting, all these things. Then we do have this different selection index programs, and at the end we do have this DNA markers in the present era. Like we are going for this genome association studies as well as for this genomic selection program at this point of time by using this DNA markers. Means before going for this selection programs, we have also gone for this crossbreeding methods. And also like when you do see this crossbreeding, it is from the different breeds we are using it, and mainly it is used for exploiting this hybrid vigor as well as this breed complementarity programs. And this heterosis that everyone knows that, especially in terms of in case of poultry, we are using this this reciprocal recurrent selection. This is the schematic. Mostly all the people we have gone through the things in our basic and bachelor's as well as in the master's degree. Like how we have this one is mostly used in terms of poultry, and means the basics. All the people they will be aware of this. It is the type of progeny testing program only. Like we will be having this two populations, then we will be crossing that, and based upon the test scores, we will be selecting this population. Then again, those two populations will be crossed, and based upon the test scores, again we will be going for the selection. And like we do have the different methodologies like this trap nesting, all these things we have gone through the things. And after that, we do use this reciprocal recurrent selection in related to this environmental selection. This RRS is always better when we do go for this pure line selection also. And coming to this, when we have gone for all these basic things, like we have gone for this mass selection program. After that, we have gone for some of these crossbreeding programs. Then again, when we entered this molecular genetics program, also like initially we have gone for this basic individual genes, the candidate gene approach we have started. And when we do say that it is a candidate gene approach, like say suppose that we used to say that this particular gene is a candidate for that particular trait. For example, we can take any of the genes that is responsible for this DGAT1, for example. If you do take it is responsible, it is a candidate gene for this milk fat percentage. And we have initiated, we have started with this candidate gene approach. In that, what we have done, like the individual genes we have sequenced, and like any of the people, like when I'm just making the lecture, they can stop me anytime in between if they do have some queries also. And we have started with this candidate genes, and it is as the quantitative traits are mostly governed by multiple genes. Like many of the genes, they do interact and they do determine that that complex trait. Because when we do study the genes in individual way, like I will go for this candidate gene, because for a single trait there will be many candidate genes, and when we do go for individual genes, it was not yielding much beneficial results. And then we have started like the Human Genome Project. When they have started the things, in fact, it was based up as a consortium mode they have developed it, and the genome sequencing it is being carried out throughout the world. But now when they have initiated, it was a long process. Like when they want to sequence the genome, then it was taking a lot of time for that. But nowadays, like with this genome sequencing, like if we do send the samples, then by the next week we are getting the results also, the entire genome. And also like with the genome sequences also, we do have multiple different sequences we do have, and the different methodologies are being followed for the different aspects also. And coming to this next generation sequencing part, and this genomics, it was right from the livestock breeding, whether it is a livestock breeding or whether it is a health program, welfare, as well as for the conservation program, this genomics, it is being used as a foundational tool for all these aspects. And when we do speak about the genomics, and it is the markers, like the genomoid markers, it is the prerequisite for this one. And identification of this genomoid markers, it is being carried out through these different genomic next generation sequencing technologies. Like when we do sequence, the entire genome is being sequenced, then we can be able to identify the markers that is present throughout that genome. Like before that, once the genome is sequenced, like we should have a reference genome, or else like we should have the reference genome of our own, like the de novo genome assembly needs to be managed, need to be done, and then only we can be able to compare the things. Like here, once the genome is being sequenced, like there we will be having the we can be able to identify the different genomoid markers. Also, we can be able to identify. Once the genomoid markers are being identified, then we can be able to use it for the different purposes. Either it is for the diversity analysis, or to identify the markers for the particular trait, or in case of genomoid association study. What are the things? It is the basic thing that we need to identify the genomoid markers. Once this,
Sir, excuse me, sir. Jay Kumar, sir. Sir, actually, your PPT is in PPT mode, and we can see only the first slide, sir.
And also, please present in full screen mode, sir.
It is in full screen only. I think that maybe I will make a new share.
Better,
yes, sir.
better. And now it's okay, sir.
Now we are seeing this next generation sequencing.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Ah,
sir.
yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Like when we do, like only, like we are able to see the slides now moving.
Sir?
Now it's
Yes,
okay,
sir. Now it's okay, sir. You can continue, sir.
Thank you. Like when we do see this, once this genomic markers is being identified after the sequencing of this genome, then we can be able to use these genomic markers for these different purposes. Either it is for this genomic, this diversity part or whole genome SNPs identification, or for this genomic association studies, because this genomic markers identification is a basic step. And after that, it is we can be able to go for our specific application by using these genomic markers. But one thing that we need to accept is that this genomic sequencing, this genomics, all this next generation sequencing, we need to invest a lot of money in that. We need to spare a huge amount of money, whether it is this genome sequencing, transcriptome, or microRNA, or long, whatever the things we need to go for. It requires a lot of high cost is being associated with that one. And we do have this in our indigenous breeds, not only in cattle or any other things, we do have some limited data. Like, but now we have also taken a lot of initiatives for sequencing the different samples, the different breeds, and we have created these chips also for the in India also that they have created, and it is in the progress. And when we do see this DNA sequencing, like sometimes, like in between, like some of the basics also, I'm just touching up. Maybe someone may find it useful also. Like when we do see this DNA sequencing, like we are, in fact, we are determining this order of these bases. What is the order of the in which the bases has been arranged in this DNA sequences? Like it is A, G, 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 C, A, like whatever the things, we are identifying the order of these bases. And when we do see these things, it is being used in the different aspects also, and we are sequencing this entire genome. Like, in fact, the entire genome is being sequenced, but not at a stage. What we used to do, like the entire genome is being isolated. After that, because these genome sequences, we can be able to handle very small length only, like whether it is like it can be 150 base pair, 250 base pair, like it all depends upon the different chemistries that is being applied. And we also at present, we do have this PacBio system. PacBio, in fact, it sequence a very large fragment, like sometimes it is 14 to 20 kb, like that. A very large fragment is also being sequenced by these PacBio sequences. But Illumina, like it can be able to, we can be able to sequence the 150 base pair, 250 base pairs like that only. For that, the entire genome is being broken down by using this restriction enzymes or by using any other methodologies. The entire genome is being broken down into small fragments, and these small fragments is being sequenced by using this next generation sequences. And once it is sequenced, then all these fragments are aligned with each other. Then the assembly is being made. Yeah, we can be able to make this de novo genome assembly, or we can be able to compare with the reference genome that is already available with us, and we can be able to identify the markers. Once this genome is sequenced and assembled, and we have identified the markers, we can be able to proceed for the rest of the things. And coming to this historical part, this RNA sequencing, it is the earliest form we are doing it, and we were also doing this bacteriophage MS2 by this Walter Field, as well as this genome sequencing, that is the DNA sequencing. Right now also we are using it, this Sanger sequencing, that is by this chain termination method. Before that, like we were also having this Maxim, this Walter Gilbert and Alan Maxim at Harvard also, they were using this DNA sequencing by this chemical degradation methodologies. And right now also we are this Sanger's method, it usually it is having this incorporation of this selective nucleotides, like this chain termination methodology of this di-deoxynucleotides is being followed here. Like when we do started this human genome project also, like in fact they have used this method also like to sequence many of these genomes, many of these chromosomes, then they have assembled all the things. But nowadays, like when we do want to sequence whether it is a human or any of these animal genomes, like we can be able to sequence in a very short period of time. The library means within because nowadays the sequences it is being used even in the labs also, the different labs also, like some of these labs that they do have these sequences and they do sequence their genomes. And coming to the things like this one also we have already seen, like we are having these quantitative traits and this next generation sequencing, it has been selected as by this nature method as the method of the year in 2007. Like this next generation sequencing nowadays it is playing a major role. Like maybe in the upcoming slides we'll be able to see that how these different methods by using this next generation sequencing, whether it is the genome, transcriptome, or this reduced representation approaches of the genome, how we are able to use it, and maybe like some of the workflow also we can be able to see. Maybe if someone is interested, they can follow it also. And this next generation sequencing, it is selected as a method of this year. Like one of the main disadvantage of this next generation sequencing is that we are sequencing this massive sequencing is being, it is parallel sequencing is being carried out. Parallel sequencing, like many of the samples it can be sequenced, and also one more thing is that multiplexing of the samples is also possible. Multiplexing is that many individual samples can be put together and can be sequenced. Multiplexing in the sense, like from the DNA from the different individuals, the DNA will be isolated. Once the DNA has been isolated, it will be broken down. And for each individual, we will be adding a barcode also. The barcode, it will help us to identify that, okay, this fragment belongs to this individual. Because the barcodes, it will be different for each individual. Based upon the barcodes, we can be able to identify that this fragment of the sequence, it belongs to this particular individual, and like that individual 1, individual 2, individual 3. That's how this multiplexing is being carried out in the genomics perspective. This multiplexing is being carried out in all of the things, like whether it is a genome sequencing, even if it is a genome sequencing also, like say suppose that in the livestock, if you want to sequence a genome, like say suppose that if it is 2.8 GB, and if you want to have 10x coverage, then it is going to give 28 GB data. And when we do see that single lane, we can be able to pull multiple samples and we can be able to generate so much of data. By using this barcode, the individual samples can be barcoded and we will be able to get all the data at a very short period of time. This massive parallel sequencing also it is being carried out. And also we do have this 454 Roche genome sequencer also, as well as the pyro sequencing. Like pyro sequencing, it is based upon the detection of this pyrophosphate that is being released when a particular DNTP is being incorporated. This is how this pyro sequencing is being carried out. Then we do have also, apart from this Roche, we are having this Illumina sequencing. Like the basic principle of this Illumina sequencing is this sequencing by synthesis chemistry. It is the basic thing of this Illumina, that is the sequencing by synthesis, and it is having this cloning-free DNA amplification is there. By attaching this single-stranded DNA fragments to the solid surface, it is being attached, and from the one there will be a breakage of the one. And this is the Illumina Selector genome sequencer. And also, like we do have this comparison of how this Sanger 454 FLX Roche, the genome Illumina, all these things. Like when we do see this, our Sanger sequencer, usually we can be able to go for sequencing like 600, 700, like up to some 1100 to 1200 base pairs also we can be able to do it. But when we do see the data production, it is very less only. But when you do see this next generation sequencing methodologies, even we do get more amount of data by using this NovaSeq, and also like now we are having this PacBio. Every next generation sequences we are having it. But the thing is that the length, the size of the fragment that is being sequenced is very less in case of Illumina also. Like it is having some up to 150, 250 base pairs, it is being sequenced. Now we do have this single molecule real-time sequencing is also there. This SMRT is there, and PacBio sequencing, as already we have discussed, that we can be able to go for sequencing a very large fragment. We can be able to sequence without any breakage. Like once it is done, then we don't need to assemble those fragments, because already it is a very large fragment is being assembled. It is being sequenced. I'm sorry. Like this next generation sequencing, if you do see, it is a potential research tool for all our animal genomes research. And in fact, it is playing a major role in case of our animal health as well as the productivity. And the only main disadvantage, there is the major challenge, if you do see, with the help of these next generation sequences, we were able to produce large amount of data. The data is being sequenced at a very fast pace. But the thing is that maybe like once the data is generated, it needs to be analyzed, because the data generation is a little bit comparatively easier these days, because we can be able to take the sample, isolate either the DNA, RNA, whatever the things, and we can be able to send it for sequencing. And once the library is prepared, and they can be able to sequence it at a very short period of time. But the real challenge, it comes after the data that has been generated only. Like we do need a different advanced bioinformatics tools is required for analyzing this data sets that is being generated from this next generation sequencing machines. This genetic marker, like most of us will know, we know the things. Like we do have these different approaches for this study, like this population genetics, comparative genomics, phylogenetics, all these things. But then we have started with this whole genome sequencing, then RNA sequencing, then in fact this targeted sequencing is also being carried out. Now we are having this exome sequencing. We can be able to do this exon enrichment, and we can be able to go for this sequencing only the exonic part of this genome. And next comes the interesting thing, that is the RAD-seq. RAD-seq RAD stands for restriction site associated DNA sequencing. That is the RAD-seq it stands for. Like this RAD-seq, maybe in the upcoming slides we will be seeing what is the RAD-seq also, what is the principle of that. Coming to the very briefly, like a RAD-seq, it is the restriction site associated DNA sequencing. We will be breaking this entire genome by using this restriction enzymes. Then after that, the restriction, once it is broken down, then we may need to add these adapters. Adapter sequences, it will be having both the barcodes as well as some of the primer sequences that is being used for sequencing. Then after this, like before sequencing, we will be doing this multiplexing. And after sequencing, we have to demultiplex. Means like before sequencing, the samples are being multiplexed. Multiplexed in the sense, like I am having 100 samples, 100 animals genome, that DNA. Once it is broken down by using restriction enzymes, the adapter sequences has to be added. The adapter sequences, it will be having both the DNA, the adapter sequences will be having both the barcodes as well as the primer sequences, which will be able to differentiate the samples. Maybe like before sequencing, that's what we used to do. We will be doing the multiplexing. Once the samples are sequenced, then based upon the barcodes, then we will be demultiplex the samples. Once the samples are demultiplexed, then we will be having the individual samples data. Maybe like if I'm having this workflow, I will just show it to you. Yes. This is the workflow of this. In fact, like under DDRED, we do have the different methodologies, whether it is the GBS, genotype by sequencing, DDRED, crops, means many methods are there under this RAD itself. And when we do see this DDRED workflow, what it is happening in this, DD, it stands for double digestion. RAD, as already we have discussed, it is restriction site associated DNA sequencing. Here, if you do see this is the genome, this blue one, and after that it is being digested with the restriction enzyme. Whether it is a frequent cutter or rare cutter, means in DDRED we'll be using both the restriction enzymes. That is the rare cutter as well as the frequent cutter of the restriction enzymes we will be using, and we will be doing this restriction digestion. Once the restriction digestion has been done, then the entire genome is broken down into small fragments. That can be used for sequencing in the next generation sequencing machines. Once these fragments are being broken down into small pieces, we need to go for attaching these adapters. Dr. Shushmita ma'am, I think that the slides are, we are on the track, I think, no? Now it is visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Like when we are adding these adapters, the adapters, it will be having these barcodes also. Like here we have written, it is a 4 to 8 base pair barcodes. In these adapters, we will be having the barcodes. Once the individual samples has been broken down, then individually, like we have to ligate these adapters for the individual samples. Once like that, individually we need to do it for the individual samples, maybe whatever it is, 50, 100, 200, whatever the things. And once the individual samples has been ligated with the adapters containing these barcodes, then before sequencing, we will be pulling all these fragments, because now we know that because each fragment will be having that barcodes. Then once it is sequenced, then we'll be able to know that this sequence belongs to this particular individual. Even though we have pulled it, after sequencing, based upon the barcodes, we can be able to differentiate the things. Once the samples are being broken down and digested and adapters has been ligated containing the barcodes, all the different fragments we will be pulling it. And once all the fragments have been pulled, we will be going for this site selection step. Actually, like this is one of the major, like in case of GBS, genotype by sequencing, this site selection step, it will not be there. But in case of our DDRED, the site selection step is being followed. Actually, this site selection, we will be selecting only those fragments that we can be able to go, that can be sequenced by this next generation sequencing machine. Because of this size selection, this DDRED is different from this genotype based sequencing methodology. Once the size selection step has been carried out, then we will be going for PCR. The PCR will be for very few cycles. Then it will be put up into this sequencing and we'll be getting the data also. Yes, this is what I want to see. This is the RAD-seq. This is what the workflow we have seen. That means it is not only for the RAD-seq, it is for all the things. Whether it is the genome or transcriptome. Once the genome is there, then we will be digesting it with the restriction enzymes. Then we will be ligating these adapters containing these barcodes. Then pooling will be carried out. Then all those once it is pulled, then it will be sequenced. Then before that, we can be able to go for this size selection, everything, and we can be able to get the samples sequenced. Like the markers, initially we have seen that whether it is once we are going for this genome sequencing, the basic requisite for all our studies is this marker identification. The markers, when you see this SNPs, but the thing is that the SNPs, once it is identified, like we can't call it as a marker, because for an SNP to be called to be an SNP, like it should be present in more than 1% of the population. The SNP, that the single base pair change in the DNA sequence, it should be present in more than 1% of the population samples. Like say, suppose that it occurs that it should be present in significant proportion in that population. Then only like it is a single nucleotide polymorphism. The thing is that the single nucleotide polymorphism, it can be identified by either by this Sanger sequence or by any of these NGS methodologies. Because the SNPs are abundant and it is more stable, having a low mutation rate, as well as it is being inherited, and there is a low cost of genotyping also. Like these SNPs, once we do identify that these SNPs, once we do identify these SNPs, like for, because each SNP will be having these different genotypes, like then we need to go for, we need to see that which genotype is associated for the particular trait. With the particular trait, we need to go for genotyping also. But there is, like here we are sequencing, then we are also going for genotyping. Even this our RFLP we used to do, then we used to genotype that particular SNP, then we will be getting the different patterns. Based upon that one, we'll be going for genotyping. But nowadays in this NGS methodologies, even this sequencing and this genotyping is being carried out simultaneously also. Like even the methodology that we have seen for this DD-RAD or GBS, it stands for genotyping by sequencing. Like in fact, we are genotyping the samples by even by sequencing also. Genotyping by sequencing methods, it is being followed. Like here we are following this basic thing that once the genome is being sequenced, then we are identifying these SNPs. But one more thing is that, like once we do sequence and identify these SNPs as such, we should not call it as a marker unless it is getting inherited. Like say, suppose that we have identified these SNPs, and immediately we should not call it as a marker, because to call it as a marker, these SNPs need to be passed on to the next. They should be in the linkage disequilibrium and they should get passed on to the next generation. Then only we should call these SNPs as a marker. Otherwise, they are simply SNPs. That is the reason, like before going for this all this analysis, like once the SNPs are being identified, we'll be filtering these SNPs for the different parameters. And also they will also go for this linkage disequilibrium analysis, so that they can be able to identify those SNPs which are in linkage disequilibrium. Because once it is in linkage disequilibrium, then it is for sure that it is going to get inherited to the next generation. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir, but
Screen is
Sir, you again share the screen, sir. Right.
So now that single polymorphism slide is visible, sir.
Sir, make it full screen, sir.
It is in full screen, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
So now, sir?
No, sir. It is in PPT mode only.
It is the full screen.
No, sir. Still in PPT mode only, sir.
Dr. Navi, is it now it is the full screen mode?
No, sir.
I'm just sharing it again now.
Okay,
No issues.
Okay,
Take
sir.
time, sir. No issue.
Dr. Navi, is it in the full screen now?
No, sir. Still in the PPT mode only we can view.
For me, it is in full screen mode only. No?
Keep it in slideshow mode, sir.
I have kept it slideshow only, Dr. Navi.
Yes, sir. Otherwise, increase the size of the screens from 100% to 120 or 150. So that take time, sir. No issue. We have time.
Navi, now, Dr. Navi, now it is
So still in PPT mode, sir. It's not yet in slideshow mode.
coming in full screen only.
Sir, at the bottom, you can see that scroll bar, sir, 100%, something like that. So you make it 120%, sir.
120 or
That can be done, yeah.
See, sir?
Enough, sir. Just little bit reduce, sir.
Is it okay?
You can further reduce, sir. Some more, sir.
Little more, sir.
sir. Enough,
Okay,
enough,
sir, enough, sir. You can continue. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, one more request, sir. Some participants are requesting you to please use that cursor, sir, pointer,
Okay, ma'am.
while explaining, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Like now, I think that I can be able to. I can continue the things.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Like once we have identified this single SMP, that is a single nucleotide polymorphism. As we have discussed before, like as such, we should not call it as a marker. This because the SMPs itself, it should be present in more than 1% of the population, and they should be in linkage disequilibrium, and they should get inherited to the next generation. Then we will be having it as a marker. Once this markers is there, then previously, as we have discussed, like we were having this candidate gene approach. Because this candidate gene approach, like it gives usually like the SNPs, it may be certain only in the few region, only few genes only, not in all the genes of that is responsible, that is controlling the particular trait. When we do see this whole genome approaches, like the whole genome approach, once the genome is being sequenced, that we will be having a large amount of data sets will be generated. And this data, like mostly like once the large amount of data set is also generated, because usually we'll be going for this 10x genome coverage or sometimes 20x, means that the particular nucleotide is being sequenced for 10 or 20 times in average of the whole genome. Means a lot of data is being generated. The lot of data, once it is generated, mostly sometimes it may be redundant also.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Sir,
Are you in the 15th slide, sir? I think earlier you were in 27th.
Sir, now we are in that whole genome approaches slide.
No, sir. We are seeing that NGS only. You can scroll down, sir. Yeah, now it's okay, sir. Whole genome.
Now it is in whole genome slide only. Sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now the thing is that you people are able to visualize the slides in that larger mode.
Not in full screen, sir, but okay, sir. Manageable.
Okay.
It's in PPT mode only, sir. So you have to manually select the slide, sir, when you're going to the next slide.
Okay, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Like these whole genome approaches, once the whole genome is being sequenced, like we are having this, because we are sequencing for 10x or 20x coverage, and there will always be redundancy. The repetition will always be there. And mostly like we may be having some unwanted information also. Then because once this genome is, whole genome is sequenced, the bioinformatic analysis is little tedious. And considering all these disadvantages, the people, they started following these reduced representation approaches. The reduced representation approaches, we are having a lot of advantages. Also, like previously we have seen this DDRAD workflow. It is one of these reduced representation approaches, because there we will be getting the data size, usually it will be very less when compared to the whole genome. And the cost is also reduced, as well as the analysis part is little comfortably we can be able to make it when compared to the whole genome. And now we are switching out to this next slide, ma'am.
Yes, sir, it moves.
Yes, this next generation sequencing, when we do compare it with this reduced representation approaches, like usually like this multiplexing, it as we have discussed before, here we can be able to multiplex many number of samples. Based upon the barcodes, can be able to identify the individuals, and the lot of data can be generated of many samples at a lower cost. Like in fact, nowadays, like when we do see this whole genome sequencing, like per sample, usually like it is costing near about some 15 to 16,000 per sample. But when we do see these reduced representation approaches, in fact, we are able to get it done for a sample at a cost of rupees 3,000 also. The entire whole genome of this using this reduced representation approach, we can be able to get it sequenced. Also, we have seen this, the SNP genotyping. Previously, we used to go for this RFLP or this sequencing methods also, but nowadays we are having this different SNP chips is also there. Apart from this sequencing, nowadays we are having this SNP chips, so that we can be able to get the genotype of the SNPs in our samples. For that, we are having this Affymetrix, Tagman assay, as well as the different methodologies are also there. And the Illumina as well as the Affymetrix, they are having this, apart from this many others, they are also having this SNP chips. Like this is one of this bead chip, that is the SNP chip that is being produced by this Illumina, as well as this Affymetrix. Actually, like in case of Illumina, like when we do see what is the main basic difference between this Affymetrix, though this platform is different, this Illumina as well as the Affymetrix. Like Illumina, if you do see this SNP chip for cattle, this SNP chip can be used only for the cattle. The SNP chip for cattle, buffalo, sheep, goat, pigs, horses, means for many species, we do have this SNP chip. And when we do see this Illumina, if it is for SNP chip for cattle, it can be used only for that particular species. But if you do see this Affymetrix, chip. In fact, like in a single chip, we can be able to partition that single chip into 4, and we can be able to use it. Say in a single chip, we can be able to load these different DNA samples of this cattle, buffalo, sheep, and goat, any of the species, 4 different species for which it has been done. We can be able to use these 4 different species, and we can be able to run it in a single. By using a single chip, we can be able to use it for the 4 different species. This is advantage when we do have this Affymetrix, but we don't have the flexibility in terms of our Illumina. Like maybe like the people, you people may be aware, like once the SMP chip, it has been done by using like many of the breeds of that particular species. It will be taken and it will be sequenced. And after all the analysis, these SNPs, it will be incorporated into the chip. That one it will be used for further genotyping of the samples. But what is the main disadvantage of using this SNP chip that is being produced? Like say, suppose that if it is a cattle, the main purpose, it is little different when we do comparative with the Western countries. There mostly they will be concentrating upon the milk production as well as the beef production, but here it is only for the milk production. At the same time, we do have this, like many of the SNPs that is present in the other breeds of the other countries may not be present, as well as the SNP density, if we do see in our indigenous cattle, it is many times like multifold. The number of SNPs is quite high in our indigenous cattle, because here we have not gone for any selection, because once the selection process is being carried out, then the SNPs is being fixed at that particular place. Then the SNP, the density in that whole genome, it will be less in the Western country, in the breeds of other countries than when we do compare to the indigenous cattle. That is the reason that the SNP chip that is being produced for the breeds of other countries, it may not be that suitable for selection process in our country. That's the reason that nowadays, like we are having our own SNP chip for our indigenous cattle. As we have also discussed, like coming to this genomoid SNPs identification, this is being carried out by many of the sequences these days. The entire genome is sequenced, and also like we have also seen this bioinformatics assembly. What is the disadvantage of having this, the whole genome data? Once we are having this, the bioinformatics assembly is a really challenging one, as well as we'll be having a lot of uninformative DNA that we may not require. And moreover, this whole genome sequencing approach is a very costly approach. And when we do see what is the alternative for all these things, it is the best alternative is this reduced representation sequencing approaches. The reduced representation sequencing approaches we have seen, like we will be going for subsampling of the genome, because the entire genome is there. In that one, we will be selecting only the portion of the genome which is of our interest. Say this, how this subsampling is being in this, the entire genome, for this whole genome SNP identification, the entire genome is sequenced. But in case of our subsampling, what we used to do, like this, we are having these different approaches, the RAD sequencing, or this crops, or this DD-RAD, GBS. The different approaches is there in these subsampling methods, in which say suppose that if you do take this RAD sequencing, that is the restriction site associated DNA sequencing, like here we do have this advantage of sequencing and genotyping at the same time. We can be able to go for, like it is not like that we will be sequencing the entire genome by using this whole genome sequencing approaches, and we will be going for genotyping by any of these methods like SNP chip or something like that. It is not the way that here we are having simultaneously sequencing and genotyping is being carried out simultaneously by using some of these restriction enzymes. We have seen in this DD-RAD method, double digestion, we have used two enzymes. One is this frequent cutter and other is the rare cutter we have used. And here we can see this SNPs are being identified simultaneously as well as it is being genotyped also. And this reduced representation approach, that is the RADSEQ and any of these approaches, it is comparatively cheaper. And one more advantage here we are having is that we are getting it sequenced as well as genotyped. And what is the disadvantage that we have seen when we do go for genotyping of our samples by using the SNP chip that is being produced for the breeds of other countries is that there our SNPs, some of the SNPs that is present in our indigenous cattle may not be present in those breeds that is for which the SNP chip has been produced. Here the density, the SNP density is also more in our indigenous breeds. And maybe the SNP that is present in the other breeds may not be present here. That one also is there. But when we do use this reduced representation approaches, here we can be able to go for sequencing as well as genotyping. In that way that it avoids the disadvantage that SNP chip is being used also. And also like many of the samples can be pulled together and we can be able to get it sequenced in a very short period of time. Here, sir, now I think that we are in the right track. The slides are also moving, I think, sir.
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes,
The
sir.
slides are moving, but it's not in the slideshow mode.
Ma'am, shall I try once again with the slideshow, ma'am?
No need, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Like here, like when we do see this whole genome, sir, like here in this reduced representation approach, instead of this whole genome, the subset is being sequenced. That is, here we will be getting the sequence of the sample as well as the genotype of that particular SNP also. Sequencing is being carried out, genotyping is being carried out, as well as it is also being multiplexed and it is being carried out at a lower cost. All these advantages we are having in our reduced representation approaches when we do compare with our whole genome approach. These reduced representation approaches we can call it is being also known as genotype based sequencing, genome-wide sampling sequencing. Many of the things is also there. Here maybe like we can see that what is the main difference between this SNP chip and this DD-RAD sequencing, or it is a genome sequencing. Here this say suppose that if it is SNP chip, first of all the samples has to be sequenced, then SNPs to be identified and these SNPs it will be printed in this SNP chip. But whereas for this DD-RAD or for any of these approaches, whatever the animal samples, whether it is for which the reference genome is available or not, we can be able to get it sequenced. And we cannot call the variants in the SNP chips, whereas that is possible with our DD-RAD approach. SSRs can also, that is the SSR, that is a simple sequence repeats. That one we cannot identify by using SNP chip, whereas it is possible in case of our DD-RAD. Indels is always, we can be able to identify the indels only with the genome sequencing only. And genotyping is possible with this SNP chip as well as this DD-RAD. That is the reason, like here in the genome sequencing by using any of these NGS methodologies, that too this reduced representation approaches, we can be able to get the samples sequenced, genotyped, multiplexed, and at a lower cost. And also, like as we have discussed, like it gives a lot of edge for us in terms of cost, as well as we are mostly this linkage disequilibrium can be as high as 95 to 100% among these genetic markers. And usually the tag SNPs are being selected in case of data analysis also. As we have discussed, like these are the different RAG sequencing reduced representation approaches when compared to the whole genome. We are having crops. We are having reduced representation libraries. restriction site associated DNA sequencing, that is RAD-seq. This RAD-seq, it uses single enzyme, whereas the DD-RAD-seq, it uses two enzymes, that is a double digestion. And GBS, it is genotype by sequencing. We do have some small differences between these different methods also. And here we do have this DD-RAD sequencing, it is giving a better results when compared to these other methods. Also, once this genome has been sequenced, we have identified these SNPs. Once these SNPs has been identified, we need to annotate those SNPs. Annotation, it will give like once this annotation it has been identified, then we will be able to say that this SNP is present at this particular location of this genome. Say, suppose that in this SNP is present in this particular chromosome and in this particular gene and in this particular exon and at this particular point. Means we can be able to say that this SNP is present in this particular location of the genome. That is the thing. Like once the SNPs has been identified, annotated, we can be able to use these SNPs for the multiple purposes as we have discussed also. Like we can be able to use it for this diversity purpose also. Like this genetic variation, it is the main thing that is the response. It is very important in this population, and this the genetic diversity is this main factor for this generation of these different species also. Like as we have seen, like when compared to this SNP chip, this RAD-seq data, it allows to perform this phylogenetic analysis and all other things with the different species also. This genetic diversity analysis is also possible. The sequence has been the sample has been sequenced, SNPs has been identified, and once this SNP has been identified, we can be able to go for diversity, as well as sometimes we can also use this sequence for identification of these SSRs, that is the simple sequence repeats. So like I think that I may be able to complete, I will go a little faster, maybe in some 15 minutes I will be able to complete it also, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so like here we can be able to go for this SSR identification also, that is a simple sequence repeats. These simple sequence repeats are being used for the diversity analysis, that is the microsatellites. That one also we can be able to identify the things. And these are the methods for identification of SSR markers. Like once we need to go for genome libraries, then the in silico mining of this DNA sequence databases, then sequencing of the whole genome or any of these reduced representation approaches. Once it is being sequenced, we can be able to identify these SSR markers. These SSR markers, that is the simple sequence repeats or the tandem repeats or the microsatellites, we used to call it many ways. It is having this high degree of length polymorphism, which is useful for our, which makes them a very powerful genetic marker, and it is used in this genetic diversity analysis. And it is present in both coding as well as the non-coding regions. Usually it is in the non-coding regions. These microsatellites, it is being used in many of the things, like even in this parentage testing, when compared to these SNPs, these microsatellites, it is having higher accuracy than our SNP markers. Like even in many of these parentage testing, even in case of basmati rice also, like it is the microsatellites which is having an edge over the SNPs. Like these are in one of the studies, it has been carried out by one of the student, Dr. Vineet, like this one, it has been carried out. Like here, we were able to identify these SSRs that is being present in the different chromosomes throughout the genome. Like here we have identified these SSRs also, and the same way that these SNPs, we can be able to use it for structuring the population. Like it is in this particular these different breeds, it can be structured also. Like in one of the work that is being carried out by Kumar et al, he has carried out in the different samples, like among the swamp buffalo, riverine buffalo, cattle, everything. he was able to use these SNPs that has been identified in the study, that is the DD-RAD approach. He was able to do the population structuring of the different samples that has been used. And also through the principal component analysis also, he was able to cluster the populations. These are the different applications I'm speaking about. Like these selection sweeps also can be identified once the data has been generated. Actually, usually the selection sweeps is the one that once the particular SNP is being favored and it will hitchhike this neutral SNP that is present in this adjacent location and it will get inherited to the different generations. Like here, once this positive SNPs is there, this one positive SNPs, and it will get inherited to the, it will be there in the rest of the population also, and it will get inherited. This is how, this is before selection and after selection of this selection sweep, it will be there. And the selection sweeps can also be identified by using this next generation sequencing methodologies. This is one of the selection sweeps that has been done. And once after all these things, we can also classify these things by this gene functional classification. We can be able to do it. I guess, like here presently, like in one of the study, like we are also able to go for this transcriptome as well as transcriptome mRNA sequencing as well as microRNA as well as this long non-coding RNAs is also being sequenced in this because actually in case of our chicken, both the ovaries are not functional. Only the left ovary is functional in case of chicken, and we are just we are using this next generation sequencing approaches just to study what makes the right ovary to be non-functional in case of this chicken as well as in other poultry birds. And this next generation sequencing methodology is also being followed for the same. This one already we have seen, and this is what the different things like here by using this next generation sequencing approaches, we are able to sequence this entire genome. Once the entire genome is being sequenced, we can be able to identify the SNPs, markers. Once this basic prerequisite is being fulfilled, this can be used for this many of these different applications, whether it is for this diversity analysis, SNPs identification, SSR identification, or selection sweeps, or even if it is for genomide association studies. We can be able to use the different, we can be able to use it for the different purposes also. And maybe like here we have just listed out of some of these basic workflows for this different analysis. Maybe if someone is interested, then maybe we can quickly go through the things. Once a blood sample has been collected, we will be going for genomic DNA isolation, as well as the quality check of this DNA, and library preparation will be there. And library preparation, we will be adding that adapters, which is containing the barcodes, which will be able to differentiate the samples. Then we can be able to go for sequencing. And once it is data has been sequenced, means as we have discussed previously, before sequencing that it is being multiplexed, and after sequencing we will be demultiplexing the samples. Once the samples, the data has been demultiplexed, we will be going for quality check of this data that is being generated. Based upon that one, if some poor quality data is there, we will be going for trimming. Then after that, we will be trimming these adapters also. Adapters also it needs to be trimmed off because it is not a part of the DNA sequence. It is we have added it from outside. Once the adapters has been trimmed, we need to go for alignment. The different tools are there, either this Bowtie 2 or BWA. We can be able to go for, and we can be able to call the variants from the VCF file, variant calling format file. We can be able to call these variants from this VCF file, and we can be able to go for annotation. Annotation, we have already seen that where the exact position of these SNPs, markers. And also for SSRs also it is the same up to alignment. And after alignment, we need to go for SSR identification, once this repeat context has been constructed, we can be able to use this SSR MISA tool for identification of these SSRs in the genome sequence. Like this is the basic bioinformatics. Actually, like this is a workflow that we have followed in many of our studies. In many of the publications that we have done it also, like this is the basic workflow that we have used it. We have used this raw reads, FastQC has been done, as well as the process reads has been obtained about a 2 for alignment. Then variant calling has been done by using the SAM tools, variant filtration by using VCF tools, annotation by using this SNPEF. Maybe actually these are the different workflows for the different analysis. This is also the, actually this is how our actual raw reads of the next generation sequencing will be getting it. Actually, it will start with this @ symbol and it will show the machine ID, and below which we will be having the sequences. Then we will be having this ASCII reads also, the quality score also. These are our actual sequences, and this is the scores that is being given for each base. This is actual sequence. Just we are dealing with this next generation sequencing. I just want to show that how the data it will look like. And here this is the raw read, and this is a Prinsic report that we will be getting. And here we need to trim these reads also. That is the adapter sequences. That is in big letters. It is the adapter sequences. That one we need to trim it off. Once it is trimmed off, then it will be starting with our restriction site sequences. That is, if you do see here, it starts with AATTA in all the samples. It should start that way so that it is, we can be able to see that it is being trimmed. Then actually, like this a fast QC, that is a quality check. We used to do it before and after trimming. So that before trimming, we will be having this adapter contamination and the poor quality reads, and after trimming, it will not be there. Like this is the alignment file. The alignment file, it is in the SAM format. And once this alignment file it has been made, like once we are putting our raw reads, process reads into against the reference, we will be getting the SAM file, and the SAM file can be converted to this different VCF file. And this is how the VCF file it will look like. It will show the chromosome, in which chromosome position, ID, what is the alternate allele, what is the qualifier, all the things it will show. And by using this VCF tools, we can be able to filter out those SNPs also. And we can be able to go for annotation of those SNPs by using the SNPEF tool. And this is the annotation file, it will look like exactly. The annotation, whether it is present in the 3' region or whatever it is present in the downstream, upstream, whether it is in the introgenic, intron, whatever the things, we can be able to identify these things. It will also, the annotation also, it will give the effect of these SNPs by its impact, whether it is having high impact, low impact, all the things, based upon the whether it is causing any change in the protein structure, all the things. This is the basic bioinformatics workflow. All these things, it is there in the paper. Maybe like this one, you can see. This is the FastQC report of the raw reads. Here, if you do see that, here we do have this adapter content in both the R1 and R2, because this is a pattern sequencing. Here we are having this adapter content also. But if you do see this one in the process reads, this adapter content adapters has been removed, and now we can be able to use this data for further analysis also. And like when you do see this, actually like this next generation sequencing approaches, we have used it for the different approaches also. Some of these, some of the things, if I can show it to you, like this paper, whether you are able to see the screen.
Yes, sir, but it is in a light shade, but it's okay.
Yes. like here in this purpose, like we have used this DD-RAD sequence for this identification and annotation of these SNPs. And in the next, actually, these are the different links. Maybe you can just go through it. Like we have used it for identification of the SNPs, for as well as to identify those annotation also we have used it. And we have also used in the third link, if you do see that this, by using this next generation sequencing, we have identified this genomic divergence. That is the diversity purpose also we have used used the data. And coming to the next one, if you do see, then here we have used it for identification of this long non-coding RNAs we were able to identify by using this next generation sequencing technologies. Actually, like these are the different approaches, applications that we can be able to use this data that is being generated by using this next generation sequencing technologies for the different purposes we were discussing. And coming to the acknowledgement part, like in fact, like these next generation sequencing data analysis, in fact, we have not learned the things in a short period of time. Like in fact, we have used the different forums, the Google and the different people that in fact they have helped us. And I extend thankfulness to my director, ICR Director of Outer Research, for permitting me to make this presentation. Also, it is all this work. It is not what are the papers that we have discussed and all these workflows. It has been developed over a period of time, like by many of the students, all my teachers, and all the colleagues with whom I work. I extend my thankfulness to all the people over there, and also I thank all of you people for giving me this opportunity as well as for the patience hearing. Thank you very much. And maybe if there are some queries, then I'll be very happy to share the things, whatever I know.
So thank you so much, sir. That was a very elaborative talk on the different sequencing methods, right from the basic sequencing methods like Sanger sequencing until the advanced techniques like next generation sequencing. And you have also elaborated quite well on the single nucleotide polymorphisms. We'll check for any queries in the chat box, sir, and we'll let you know.
If the question is there in chat box.
Okay, I'll check.
In mine, it was coming in the full screen only. Maybe I don't know what is the problem that it was not coming over.
Naveen, it's I can't see that. Please, you can.
Sir, there is a question, sir. Small doubt sometimes. Particular disease condition, more than one SNP is required. Then how do we proceed in such conditions?
For a particular disease condition, if you do have, it is responsible for more than one SNP, sir. That is because of more than one SNP, Naveen.
Yes, sir.
Naveen, like usually, like then we need to go for this transcriptome sequencing, or maybe some of the sequencing methodologies, because the Illumina or this PacBio, if you do see, it is not having a very high accuracy level. Maybe some of this solid sequencing, it is maybe like here there we will be getting only very short fragments. The sequencing accuracy is very high. Maybe among these NGS itself, we can be able to select the particular approach for which we are interested. Like, say, suppose that if you want to make sure that this particular, because of this particular SNPs, say, suppose that if it is present or not, then we have to go for that particular, the different methodologies, and we can be able to go for that particular approach. Either it is Illumina or it is a solid, or the different approaches we can be able to go for, and we can be able to select that particular methodology for further confirmation. Like nowadays, for this precision method, precision medicine, also in our case of human beings, like this is how that they used to go for this next generation sequencing approaches. Even with the Illumina itself, they are going for, but with higher accuracy, then they used to go for higher coverage. They will be having the higher coverage so that they will be able to identify that particular SNP is being present in all the things that is being sequenced.
Sir, you mean to say you need to go for higher coverage? So that
Storage
will be
instead of this, the different platforms we can use it. Say
Okay.
suppose that the solid, it will identify those SNPs because it will sequence a very small fragment but with a higher accuracy.
That's it.
Then we can be able to use those approaches.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I
Thank you,
think, yes, sir. Adipti, I think there were no more questions. You can proceed.
Yes, I can't see any other questions. So please carry on.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. In fact, sir is in vacation. He is in vacation with his family. And since I requested, though he is busy, he attended this session. So that is the reason I think, but very much thank you, sir. Sir is having so much of knowledge in NGS. He is a pioneer in the NGS, I can say. Earlier, he worked in NBI too, and Karnal, and he is the person. He's there with other scientists where the naming of animals will take place. So he is the person there, and he is in DPR in Hyderabad. Currently, he is working on the chick part. So his knowledge is vast. I can say that. This is the time I think, and I request students, please use these kind of opportunities, because you don't get these opportunities where you hear a lot much information from different pioneers. I mean, these are the experts in their fields. We don't get better than these things. So students, I request use these kind of opportunities, try to interact, so it will be fine. So thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you, Dr. Naveen. In fact, I don't know how much my presentation, because of this NGS and all, maybe when it is in the presentation mode, I don't know how much it was useful for the students and other people, but maybe if someone is really interested and if he can be able to discuss the things, then I'll be able to share the things, whatever the things I do know. Thank you very much for the opportunity also, Dr. Naveen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, over to Ashwini, sir.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. As Naveen told, it's an elaborative one. So people who are really interested, they can contact you. Now we will move on to the valedictory function. Now I invite our Associate Dean, Madam Sridevi Garu, to the inaugural function, and also Dr. Kishore, sir, who is the professor and head of the Department of Anatomy, who is actually, he is the only person now working in this college, who is since the beginning of the college he is here. So we thought he is an apt person to propose this valedictory program. Over to Kishore, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's really a privilege that we are celebrating our 25 years of existence. That is our silver jubilee. And on this occasion, we are very happy that the Department of Biochemistry of this college is conducting an international webinar on advances in veterinary and animal science. This was an international webinar slated for 2 days, yesterday and today, that is the 14th and 15th of March 2023. And we had the inauguration of the event on the 14th of March 2023. And we started it with our university song. And it was good that we had a good audiovisual presentation of the 25-year celebrations or the existence of our College of Veterinary Science, Karnaval. On this occasion, I am happy that our associate dean, Dr. Sridevi, is with us on this online platform. And our university officers, the Dean of Veterinary Science and our Honorable Vice Chancellor, are busy with pressing official engagements, and they have asked us to go forward with this. So let me please present you the proceedings of the international webinar for these 2 days. The day one, that is the 14th of March 2023, we had 3 speakers. The first speaker, Dr. Sunil Onteru, Principal Scientist, Animal Biochemistry, ICR NDRI, spoke about the estrus detection in buffaloes based on salivary patterns. The speaker and his team, they have developed an app to distinguish between typical and atypical fern patterns. A guide tree was also developed to differentiate the fern patterns and also detect the concentrations of various proteins and glycoproteins that are responsible for formation of the typical fern pattern. And this was followed by the second speaker, Dr. Suresh Verma Kuchipudi, the professor and head microbiology from Penn State University, USA, who delivered a lecture on advances in veterinary molecular diagnostics. He briefed on the nucleic acid-based tests that are commonly used in animal disease diagnosis. It was followed by the third speaker, Dr. Wilfred Hughes, the principal investigator, professor for biochemistry and biotechnology, Federal Research Institute of Animal Health, Germany, who emphasized on the need to create genome engineered animals using technologies like transposase catalyzed gene transfer and CRISPR for Cas9 genome editing. He also focused on generation of sleeping beauty transposon animals and identification of integration sites in the transposons of pig gene. These sessions were very interactive, and the question and answer session at the end of each was really very good, as the questions generated and the answers given to them benefited a lot and clearing the doubts of all these participants. Today is the day 2, that is the 15th of March 2023. And on this day also we had 3 speakers. The first one was Dr. Varij Nayan, senior scientist from ICR, CARP, ISSA. And he threw light on the artificial intelligence and immunoreagent design with respect to the perspectives in animal production. So this is also a very important one, highlighting of the use of artificial intelligence in animal production. It was followed by the lecture from Dr. A.K. Mohanty, the Joint Director from ICR IVRI Mukteswar, on the deep proteomic analysis to understand molecular dynamics of lactation function in memory epithelial cells. And this was also a very good one from the production point of view with respect to benefiting the farmers and helping them in the research on the molecular dynamics of lactation. And you must have heard just now the third speaker, Dr. Jaykumar Sivalingam, senior scientist from ICR DPR Hyderabad, on the applications of NGS, next generation sequencing technologies in livestock genomes. This was an elaborate lecture throwing light on these livestock genomics and the NGS technologies. And the participants, I think, would have benefited a lot. So that is the proceedings of the speakers and the proceedings of the 2 days. And I am happy to inform that over these 2 days, a total of 310 participants from 6 different countries, from the USA, UK, Singapore, Switzerland, Australia, and Sri Lanka, registered for this and attended, including and apart from those from India. This webinar was also streamed in YouTube, through which many others also followed these webinar speakers' lectures. So the efforts of Dr. Ashwini Kumar, the professor and head as the coordinator, and Dr. Naveen Swarup, the organizing secretary, and his team of co-organizing secretaries is to be appreciated. And we also thank our associate team and our Sri Venkateswara Veterinary University, Andhra Pradesh, for according permission to conduct this international webinar. It was really a interesting webinar on varied aspects, and I hope all these participants via the Zoom platform and the YouTube would have benefited a lot. And we are very happy that we have come to the near of the Silver Jubilee celebrations. And this event is capping up all the celebrations that we have done over the year. And focusing once again on the global platform, the activities of our college. I thank Dr. Ashwini Kumar and Dr. Naveen Saru for giving me the opportunity to present the proceedings of this international event. Thank you, and over to you, Dr. Ashwini.
Thank you very much, sir. So now I request the chairperson and associate dean of this college, Dr. Sridhar Madam, to speak about this webinar. Madam,
A very good afternoon to all the participants of the webinar and also the staff members of NTR College of Veterinary Science, Gannavaram. And at the outset, I congratulate the organizing secretary, Dr. Naveen Swaroop, and also Professor and Head, Department of Biochemistry, Dr. Ashwini Kumar, and other team members for successfully conducting this webinar on advances in veterinary and animal science. And I convey my heartfelt thanks to all the eminent scientists who delivered the lectures in this webinar. Actually, this webinar is planned within a very short period of time, but still our organizing committee, they could organize well with the efforts of all the team members. And on behalf of the NTR College of Veterinary Science, Gannavaram, I once again thank all the speakers for delivering wonderful topics during these 2 days. And I hope all the participants of the webinar could enrich their knowledge in some of these current topics of research in veterinary and animal sciences. And also I look forward and I wish and I look forward to conduct many more such scientific sessions in future also from this college. And thank you one and all. Thank you once again for conducting such a wonderful event on the eve of our Silver Jubilee celebrations of the college. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for the kind words, madam. Now I request Dr. Srividya, the co-organizing secretary, to propose vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to one and all. It gives me immense pleasure to propose vote of thanks for the international webinar on advances in veterinary and animal science. So thankfulness is the quickest path to joy. First of all, it's kind, I thank Almighty for the timely start of the event and end up with great success. I would like to thank our chief guest, Dr. K. Veerabrahme Garu, for giving his precious time in spite of the busy schedule of works. I would like to thank our beloved associate dean, Dr. P. Sridevi Madam, for her encouraging words in the organization of this event. I thank Dr. P. Ashwini Kumar, sir, Professor and Head, Department of Veterinary Biochemistry, convener of this webinar, who guided the team by giving his valuable suggestions for the timely conduct of this event. I congratulate Dr. M. Naveen Swaroop for organizing this international webinar as a part of Silver Jubilee celebrations of NTR College of Veterinary Science, Gannavaram. I also thank the co-organizing secretaries, Dr. C. Pawan Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Veterinary Medicine, Dr. T. Sushmita, Assistant Professor, Department of Poultry Science, Dr. B. Deepthi, Assistant Professor, Department of Veterinary Microbiology, for extending their support for conducting this webinar. I would like to thank the eminent international and national speakers, Professor Wilfred Hughes, Institute of Farm Animal Genetics, Germany, Dr. Suresh Kuchpudi, Professor and Head Microbiology, Pennsylvania State University, USA, Dr. A.K. Mahanti, sir, Joint Director, IVRI, Dr. O. Sunil, Principal Scientist, Department of Biochemistry, NDRI Karnal, Dr. Variz Nayan, Senior Scientist, working in Central Institute of Research on Buffaloes, Hisar, Dr. Jay Kumar, Senior Scientist, Directorate of Poultry Research, Telangana, for giving their valuable presentations on the latest technologies in the field of veterinary and animal science. I thank all the faculty members of ntrcvsc Gannavaram who directly and indirectly encouraged and supported us in conducting this webinar. I also thank university officers of Sri Venkateswara Veterinary University, Tirupati, for their encouragement and support in organizing this international webinar. I would like to thank our postgraduate students Ashok Chandra and Anjaneyulu for their technical support during the sessions. On behalf of the organizer and team members, I thank all the participants for their active participation in this webinar. Last but not the least, I once again thank the faculty members of Department of Veterinary Biochemistry, NTR College of Veterinary Science, for providing us this opportunity to take part in this international webinar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Srividya. If any feedback from participants, one or two, we can have it before we wrap up the session. Or you can send your feedbacks to the email provided. Naveen, can we have the national anthem ready with you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you all, and we will close this inaugural function with the play of national anthem. Naveen.
Yes, sir.
Sir, should we rise, sir?
No, you can stay still.
Oh, thank you.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभाशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, one and all. With this, we will close this international webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Very much, sir.
Thank you.